Okay, great. We're unmuted now. Welcome, 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 one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And gang, have we got a show for you tonight? Democrats, do they have a masculinity problem? If they do, how do they fix that problem? What do they have to do to solve it? In what ways are we failing men, if we're failing them at all? We're going to talk about it. We got some great guests. We're going to have at least one more coming soon. PrimeCayes, he'll be here when he gets here, and we'll just drag him in, and we'll have him say his piece. But for now, let's give it a start with first-time guest on my channel, Nasser. Nasser, tell people who you are, what you do, and what are your thoughts. Go ahead.
Internet lurker. Generally, I work for the loudest mouth on the internet. I'm not going to say the company's name, but you should know who that fucking person is. He owns multiple companies, but I'm not going to say the company, unfortunately. I don't want to represent it that hard. I'm just a lurker on the internet. Generally, I do debates on occasion. I'm more likely to be on Primes than yours. This is my first time with you, and I'm happy to be here. I'm going to represent the Democrats don't have a masculinity problem. So that's my side of it.
Okay, we'll get in. Prime also has that same take, but I'll let him give it when he gets here, but we'll get into it. Soy Pill, no stranger to my channel. What are your thoughts on this? Go ahead. Who are you? What do you do? What are your thoughts?
I'm the Soy Pill. I make video essays. I sometimes do debates with Wick. Not usually with him, sometimes. The left, I think, has really ceded all of the positive parts of masculinity to the right. I think there's been a huge pendulum shift away from masculinity because there's a lot of traits that we don't like. Toxic masculinity is real. We try to get away from these things that are like machismo and never crying, not showing your emotions. But unfortunately, in doing so, we've also ceded all the things of being a cool, strong lumberjack guy to the right, because the right only has one standard for masculinity, and that is the traditional one. And because that embodies the right, we're kind of afraid to embody that. We're afraid to say, hey, working out is cool. We're afraid to say, hey, you're allowed to be, a player. You're allowed to go be aggressive, not aggressive, but, go out there and, ask women out. Be the first one to ask someone on a date. So I think the left has a problem. I think you look at any of the polling data, and people view the left as pretty emasculate, and I hope that we can change that.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Next up, Visora. Go ahead. Tell us who you are, what do you do, and what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
What's up? I'm Visora. I stream on YouTube and Twitch Monday to Friday. I cover the news. I talk about political theory, sometimes social issues, generally pretty much whatever I feel like. Look, I keep hearing about this, how Democrats have a masculinity problem. The latest example being like Harry Sison, the 23-year-old TikTok star who allegedly was lying about being monogamous with women on Snapchat. A college kid acting like a college kid. Like suddenly this is a liberal masculinity crisis. This isn't about Democratic men being weak. This is all a distraction that's got like juiced up online by pearl-clutching liberals, but really regime-run bots, I would say more than anything. And the right loves this stuff. They'd rather us be debating on some influencers dating live, talking about Tim Walz and tampons or some stupid shit like that instead of why people can't afford rent. Democrats don't have a masculinity problem. Democrats have a focus problem. Stop capitulating to the Republican narrative. Stop playing the culture war games with them. Start talking about what people actually care about, what actually matters. People's wages, health, social security, the risk of war, the rampant disease spreading across this country. That's it. That's the real issues. This is a non-issue.
Well, thank you for being here. Glad you're here to talk with us. And speaking of non-issues, PrimeCayes, welcome to the show. How you doing, buddy?
Fine. Hope you're doing well, friend. And hello to everyone else here. So yeah, I don't think that I didn't hear what everyone else said. So if I repeat something, then I do apologize. But I don't think Democrats have a masculinity issue whatsoever. I think we have ceded. Sorry, not a Democrat. But I think the left has ceded the territory of like masculinity because we just haven't been fighting on this fighting there. I think that like we spent a lot of time focusing on the needs of women, and like great, right? I'm glad that we did that. But like at some point that became an opposition to the needs of men, right? That like within like the liberal intelligentsia, right? It became well, if you are trying to concentrate on men, right? If you're trying to say men have a problem, then what you're doing is trying to be subversive and undermine our ability to assist women in with their various issues. But I don't think these things actually have to be in contention. So I think that's something that happened, but we can pull back from that. I think we are pulling back from that, and I think we can address these issues quite easily.
We'll get to it. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you, friend. Last but certainly not least, BassFz, or Xerxes, as we like to call him here. Who are you? What do you do? And what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
So I like to think of myself as a social commentator. I speak about the male-female dynamic, relationships, trying to find a way to save modernity, so to speak. As far as the topic at hand, I think on a very visceral surface level, it's very easy to see that Democrats 100% shy away from even just the outwardly masculine portrayal. A lot of the young men, they do like to follow. For example, I think Visora just brought up Harry Sesson. They're very weak looking, sometimes pretty effeminate looking individuals. They are unassuming. They are afraid of to have that intimidation factor that is within or is a part of at least people's portrayal or understanding of masculinity. I think it's very easy to see. You can see this a lot with Destiny too. A frail portrayal just physically of these young men who are actually put into the forefront. I think just from that factor alone, you could see they are quite lacking. But also, there's a lot of pandering and disdain they have themselves of other young men as a way to separate themselves. Again, if we use Harry Sesson off the top of my head, I was researching him a little bit for my own video about the topic. I remember this one clip people keep bringing up is him pandering to young ladies, saying that America has failed them in multiple different regards. That pandering and that weakness to just tell people what they want to hear is absolutely the opposite, I think, of what should be considered virtuous or masculine behavior. So I think it's a little obvious when you look at it from the men that a lot of Democrats choose to put in the forefront. So
okay,
we'll leave it there for now.
And with that, we'll open it up. I know a lot of you want to get in. We're going to start with Visora, and then we'll go to Nasser, and then we'll get on to it. Go ahead.
You're saying that that people like what Harry Sison, that liberal men are effeminate. Harry Sison is literally getting shit right now for sleeping with too many women. And you think that that's not masculine enough? What would you consider masculine on the right, really quickly? Like, just really quick, let me ask a question on that. Who is, like, what's someone masculine on the right? Give me an example.
Our vice
I can
president,
answer that, unfortunately, a lot better than most people.
You probably could. Our vice president, he did 2 tours in Iraq, I think is pretty masculine.
Our vice president who wears makeup and goes on stage and what?
Well,
cries?
it's
like,
cosmetic.
The photos
and crying also isn't a problem either. I don't think
no.
for him.
Like, not crying. If he was actually crying, I would respect that. I mean, whinges about, like, did you say thank you to Zelensky? I feel like that's more effeminate than anything that I've seen out of a Democrat.
Wait, Visora,
perhaps,
I'm gonna say this a lot, and I don't like saying this, but I have to defend Zers here. Sisson, Dean Withers, all these guys, I agree with their politics, but they are these weird kind of like manufactured Democratic kind of like twinky little boys. They're not really masculine insofar as like what
but they're not. Masculine. They're not that either. They're generally college students that are literally coming up in the new political era. But also, to defend him as well, we have like figures that Trump went on the tour with. We have the Nelk brothers. We have literally the Neon and fucking Aiden Ross and who's that podcaster? With the mullet. Good lord. Goddamn,
so you're speaking another language right now.
None of these people come off as like manly men.
But these are all very popular figures in the current modern zeitgeist. that are literally being looked at by other males. Joe Rogan is literally the #1 podcaster in the world. So
But you would
not to like,
absolutely consider
yeah.
him masculine, though. I don't know if you call him
The,
right wing. Well,
the
maybe so,
hyper
but like
macho, like
absolutely masculine.
Yeah.
the hyper macho posturing is a Republican value. It's not a Democrat value. In fact, like, look, we had Tim Walz, which, like, you guys made fun of for wanting to give tampons to literally anyone who could need them. But Democrats saw him as he wore like a camo hat, went hunting, could shoot guns. He served in the military at the highest rank of any elected official in office in American history.
And that's what we wanted to, that's what Democrats want to push forward. They want to push forward the respectableness, whereas in Trump's kind of leaning towards the influential is kind of not the best with the truth. When we look at a Joe Rogan, we don't see him as like a truth teller.
Why does the masculinity need to relate to
Hold on. You're all wanting to go at once. I want to get everyone I can in here. I want to give it to Prime for a minute, and then we're gonna
just very quickly. Yeah. Can we like bypass most of the confusing nonsense of this conversation and like be a bit more specific as to what we mean by masculinity, right? Because one's gonna say like, "Oh, this person's super masculine," another person's gonna say it's not. Then we're not gonna understand why we have these differences. Can we get a bit more concrete on that?
So just to be clear, the reason we're having this conversation, the reason we're bringing it up, is because poll after poll after poll shows that Zoomer men, young men, college-age men, they're all hard-leaning right. They're all, in an almost unprecedented degree, turning to the right. So the question becomes, why are Democrats not appealing to young men, right? So whether or not we have masculine people within the Democratic Party it's
not
question.
About masculinity here. I think it's about a perception of masculinity that's being misconstrued. It's actually about the ability to counterattack. And Democrats are weak with their counterattacking, and because of that, come off as weak in their messaging. And that's the argument.
I think you're missing something critical.
The masculinity is just soft bluster.
But like it seems like the other side's argument is that like the left is missing masculine figures, right? So then if we don't understand
more than that. See, but I think it's even deeper than that, right? Because I think you're right. One, we should identify masculinity first, but to counter Visora really quickly, I think what you're missing is that a lot of Zoomers don't feel like they're even accepted or even represented by Democrats. And the reason why is because there is a lot of disdain from liberal, feminist, left-leaning side of people for the mere concept or the existence of being a male. Would you accept that?
I would say it's more likely that's a problem in a very specific subset of establishment liberals, but very rarely anything broader to the left of that. And I would say it's much more of an issue on the right, that the right thinks that this is an issue and then creates it. Like, yes, there are women and like even men on the left who have these like thought processes, but they're few and far in between. I feel like most of those people are Joe Rogan watchers, to put it bluntly.
Visora, I don't actually disagree with what you're saying.
Let's go Soy, then Nasser. That's the order.
Yeah, Visora, what you're saying, especially in your opening statement about that, how this is a non-issue, the only part I disagree with is not that, like, we have a masculinity problem insofar as our men are doing something wrong or that there is a sincere problem we need to fix. The problem is what you're saying, is the perception. And unfortunately, Zoomers are seeing this, and they're saying, hey, I, have this perception from media that is, a very pigeonholing for men. Men are big, strong, muscly guys that go do hero stuff and action and save people and work out. And that's their only understanding of it. Now, they're wrong, right? They are very tunnel visioned in that sense, but the left doesn't have those figures that embody that. In fact, some of us even reject it. And the problem is not that we need that because it's important to have that. The problem is that we've ceded that entire concept, that entire archetype to the right, and therefore all these people who are misled are going to go to the right because they don't see that on the left.
I agree to an extent. Like, I don't think that Gen Z is all that obsessed with masculinity. Like, Gen Z and millennials, to an extent, younger millennials, are much more fluid in their gender. They're adaptable to that. the discourse around whether or not like it's okay to be a man on the left is manufactured discourse. Sorry,
But it's
Nasser,
Yeah,
you
but
had
but
your
it's
that's
hand
not
up.
what
discourse. But
they
it is
see,
But
discourse.
though.
you're all right. You're all
Yeah,
right. We are
but
ceding this ground, but we don't
yeah,
need to fight on their terms. It's not like we have Fetterman, for example. Dude showed up to the inauguration wearing cargo shorts and a t-shirt. Now, like, you could say that
but
that's masculine, but that didn't make a good difference.
No,
but
it just
hold
made
on.
him look
This
like a
is a
slob.
real.
Really, that wasn't.
I
It was-
agree.
This is a real surface level view of it, right? Like if I were to ask you, like, what are some masculine virtues you think a young man should exhibit? What would you say they are?
Well, first I would
subjective
add in
one.
yeah, I would say
It
first
is,
that's
but that's not the
subjective.
point of the
But
question.
like
Go ahead.
I can add some. But I do want to say I don't think that virtues need to be gendered in any way, but
And
sure,
that right
kindness,
there, that's perfect.
empathy.
That's a perfect response. You can't even give weight to the
I
concept of what
literally
it
am.
means to be masculine. The first thing you said
I
was
am.
maybe it shouldn't be gendered. But that's
No,
what
I'm
Gen Z
saying
is
that
seeing.
your
They're
no, I'm
not
saying
even
that
seeing
your
or hearing
moral
that
views
being a
shouldn't be
male is
gendered.
good.
Why do you
Well,
think
again,
that men should have specific standards for their like moral behavior that is
I can answer your question.
gendered directly to them?
I'm gonna answer your question. And actually, this is actually thanks to Soy Pill. I've actually updated my opinion on this. Maybe he might like it, maybe he won't. We'll see right now in real time.
I can.
So I
take a
remember
wild guess
one
that I won't.
time we had a debate, I think, and he asked me a similar question, or he made a point. He said, "Everything you labeled about being masculine are all good traits. Why don't we just apply it to women?" I say, you know what? He actually has a great point. Why don't we just put it all into women? And that's a great, excellent point. I think it's important
Why doesn't it
that
just
there
apply to
should
people?
be exactly, and I think you guys are right that honestly, virtue should just apply to people generally. The problem is that you don't even begin to see ground that there are good things about being a man. The first thing you did was you filtered it out. You didn't even say, "Oh, well,
But
maybe
that's
there
not
are
what you
some
asked me.
ideals." It is what I
Hold
asked you.
on,
What are some
hold on,
positive
if I may.
virtues about
Sure.
masculinity? That's
The
what I asked
question
you.
was
Which we both agreed was subjective, but
okay, but that I do want to answer the question. Like Prime, you're making a real face, and I want you to answer this too, right? Because I think a young man watching this who doesn't really know what it means to be a man, like he wants to be a man. He wants to be I
kindness,
want to be
empathy,
if I may,
community
if I may
advocacy.
finish, right? They want to be a man. They're like, how do I do this? What should I do to be a man? And the answer that they're hearing is, well, you know, it shouldn't be gendered anyway. We're not giving an answer, so let's have an
It's
answer.
be a
I
man.
really want one.
Well, no,
So,
Visora, the issue is, and
hold
this is.
hold on.
I real quick, Visora, you're being too smart, and this is a bad
true.
thing. You are analyzing this from an academic, intelligent perspective, and unfortunately, most people don't view it that way. You and I can have a conversation about toxic masculinity and know exactly what we're talking about, but you say that term to 99% of the population, and they're going to think you're a man-hating, misandrous, feminist, screaming person, right? So
I
the
don't
issue,
say.
huh?
I don't say that word for that exact reason. You are right. I am
exactly.
thinking of this at a higher level of
Right.
you
And
know.
so it's like, no matter how right you are right now, what matters is how do Democrats win these people back? And unfortunately, telling them, hey, we need to have gender neutral morals, which I agree with. Zerst just said it. Like, that is something I agree with. I maybe could be argued as a gender abolitionist. That's not a winning message right now. We can get
What
there.
does the right?
yeah. So hold
What
on.
does the
before-
right
sorry,
put
hold
out?
on,
Let's
hold
give
on.
it
Sorry,
to
go on,
Prime.
go on,
Let's
go on.
give it to Prime.
Yeah. So my point is entirely different from Soy Pill. Hello, hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, my point is entirely different from that. So I think that, you know, kids, young men are looking for guidance, right? And they are going out on the places where they can easily connect with other people. That happens to be social media, right? That's the path that they take. And they're looking, hey, like, what do I like? I don't. I'm a little lost here, and we have to have solid answers for them. And so, yeah, I kind of, I mean, I think we're on the same page that, like, I think it's weird to gender these like morals, right? Like, a man should be responsible, but like, shouldn't a woman be as well, right? We would hate if a woman wasn't responsible. Like, all these things I think work. However, right, if we're actually talking to these men, if we're actually going to appeal to them, if we act, and if this is a path for them on their political journey, which apparently it is, right, then we actually do have to have that answer. Yeah, so like, a man has to be responsible, he has to be reliable, he has to be able to take leadership roles, right? And we have to show men, like, what does that mean, right? He has to be the support unit for his family, right? Like, these are all like things that we can instill in young men. These are positive traits that we can say that like are masculine. That we can save like the more academic conversation for later.
I think
Fine,
since
yeah.
COVID, generally men have been seeking like some answers for particular things. When we look at it, I do believe this is more like a class issue, because we do separate like rural men from like maybe like a corporatist man, where generally they go to college, they go get their higher education. Not all the time, they'll probably end up leaning more left when they do receive that higher education, but generally I do feel like on the college level we've also kind of superseded all that. We gave a lot of the stuff to the left, and there's nothing really masculine about even college now. And now people are like being told not to even go to college.
I don't
Go learn a
understand.
trade instead.
I don't understand
and
how
go,
this is
yeah,
class
I
based.
know.
This doesn't make this
Look,
does. I want you to expand on this.
Well, it is class based because you're learning a trade instead of going to college, and then generally you become blue collar. So generally,
No.
and then blue collar is immensely
but
you
like
can make a
separated
class-based
from white
argument for
collar.
this.
Yeah, you're not. So like why is the people who have gone to college, why are they less masculine? Like, what's the argument you're making here? Because I don't understand. If you could expand, please.
Well, I mean, that's gonna probably. I think men tend to do that to themselves. They tend to treat college like it is now. Now it is being kind of gendered, because generally now we have like the Andrew Tate, the hustle culture. The hustle culture has made it gendered in a way.
No. The hustle culture hasn't changed college. Hasn't changed the nature of college.
Well, the Andrew
Like, you're
Tate kind of
saying-
hustle culture,
just-
like
You're saying that there is
the
a-
grind set
Yeah.
culture.
You're saying that there's a
Yeah.
class
The mental
divide
illness
here,
that they
but
get.
like you haven't actually like drawn that out. Like, what's the class? Like, you're saying if you look at a man who's gone to college and one who maybe has gone to a trade school, that there's a clear divide in level of masculinity or something. Like, could you expand on that?
Generally, but I think it's because the hustle culture has evolved into being kind of like this unhealthy, like thing, based
the
on,
hustle
because if you look
economy.
at Instagram, if you're looking at Instagram and you're looking at Instagram to constantly like kind of get reassurance or maybe find ways to like make money, or you're going to be fed that pipeline.
Okay, but again, that doesn't answer my question. I don't know why we're going to hustle culture. Like, you're making an argument. Now, if you're saying that you're backing away from this argument, that's fine. But like, I'm asking you to
Can I-
actually draw this out
Sure.
between trade school
I will.
and college.
Maybe
and you're not
I'll
actually
help
doing
him out, because I think I see where he's going, but maybe I'm wrong. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But it is seen today as less masculine to go to college, and one of the evidences I would point to showcase that is that more and more men are not seeking higher education. They're either not enrolling in the first place, they are dropping out. We looked at a historical black college. I forget the name of it, but it's 75% women who are attending. That's crazy.
Sorry, hold on, but that's dumb. Hold on, but
Why is that dumb?
That's the argument.
I agree with you.
Sorry, to be clear, are you making this argument?
I'm trying to
Or are you
steel man
just-
his.
Okay. So if that's the argument, that's a dumb argument, right? Like, there are barriers that keep.
I don't think it's a dumb argument. I think maybe
it was. Hold on. Let me counter that, right? And then please hit me back, right?
Counter,
I
please.
think. Yeah, exactly. So there are barriers that are keeping men from getting to go to college, right? They don't have as much institutional help that we've like built up for women in the past 2 years. I think there is men who are feeling hopeless and they aren't achieving. I think there's there's achievement gap that's happening, like the below grades that's keeping men from being able to go. There's a whole list of issues there, and it's been very much studied, right, as to why men are failing. But it's not that there's suddenly a lack of desire to go to college, right? Like, give me a poll or something that says that.
It's the lack of help, generally. If I'm going to steal your part of it, it's the lack of general assistance and the outwardly thinking outside the box, because a lot of people learn differently, and not necessarily men learn differently than women, and men learn differently than from themselves from another man, and stuff like that. So
okay, so then it wouldn't be like with the point that Wick made.
Yeah.
Then that would be like that's. Like that,
Again,
like that
I do want to hear from Visora too.
I think there's just a bastardization of like, because the media is even picking it up. Like Joe Rogan's like, you probably don't. They kind of hint at stuff like that, and the higher. But people listen to these figures. I know you can just dismiss it, Prime, because you don't listen to any
I'm
of these
asking you to
things.
explain. You're saying you just keep making assertion after assertion after assertion, and then I push back slightly, right, on you. Hey, expand on this, and then you move to another assertion. You don't actually expand on it. So please, like help us out here. We're making all these dumbass claims.
You're making a class argument. Let me expand on it for you for a second. The class argument comes from the lower socioeconomic status men are feeling more emasculated because of the upper socioeconomic status people changing algorithms where everybody engages and gets their news from Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, doesn't matter, to show more outrage because that's what gets you to do more engagement. We've seen this. It's been studied. It's been shown in Senate hearings. It's outrage politics.
And maybe it'll push.
I'll take it a step further from this. I'll take a step further from this. I think that this entire, even this current discussion of do the Democrats have a masculinity problem is based on an assumption that is a lie. We are lying to ourselves because the Republicans are not masculine. Republican figures are not masculine. Trump is loud. He's not masculine. Andrew Tate wears women's jackets and women's pants. And is also not masculine. Beating women up, raping them, and saying that you hate women is not being masculine. You want to know what masculinity means to me? Masculine traits of that you could apply to young people that you can advocate for is community advocacy. Going outside and protecting vulnerable people in your community because you are strong and because you take that onto yourself. It would be working to better the lives of people around you. These are what I would
let me interject. If I Bass, I'll let you go in a second. Guys, I'll let you go in a second. I'll let you go in a second, but this is an important point, and I think this is kind of hitting at the core of the issue here that I want to get. Like Prime just laid out a host of systemic disadvantages that men have when it comes to higher education, right? For a host of reasons, okay? Then the question becomes, well, I'll just ask this simply to everyone. Like, what Democratic policy is out there that is purported to help men? What Democratic policy is being pushed forward to help men? Because we acknowledge that we're in a crisis of sorts, of masculinity.
Child tax credit, equal maternity leave, anything that's all-encompassing and universal. Like,
hell, Biden was getting rid of student debt.
Child tax credit is your answer to what
helps men.
But he's right. Because we're talking about systemic things
at a lower rate to women.
No, first of all,
probably the better route would be better education, more outlets
but
for
that
students
ties into education
and all that
stuff. You can't go to school if you're stuck home taking care of your kids. You can't go to, for example, Biden was erasing student debt, which was helping men and women.
More women go to college, and they have for a while that it was absolutely helping more women.
Because the messaging is bad, right? You're like, I'm not saying, hey, men, this would be good for you. I'm saying this will be good for everyone. Men don't hear, oh, that's good for me. They hear that from the
Department of Education is cutting funding to universities that they disagree with, is making all of the student debt cuts that Biden instituted reversed. So now you have to pay that back again. The economic aspect of it absolutely falls into everything else. If you can't afford to live, then that's your main issue. Right now, I think that the people who, the masculine, feminine, none of that matters. It's people that are in the working class, worry about getting substance for themselves.
I think it does matter.
Housing. It does matter, but first we have other priorities of life.
When we look at the...
hold on. We kind of have to... Well, you can go, then I'll go. Go ahead.
Yeah, Nasser, then Bass.
When we look at the election, when we look at what Trump's appeal was, is he provided a winning kind of ideal, and then he also provided an actionable answers, where the Democrats probably failed to
what were the
reflect that nature. All the lies he peddled. I'm not even gonna go through the whole bullshit.
I'll agree with you.
I know. Yeah. Did he peddle? Did he put forth though? Just give me
the
some
wall,
more
the because generally immigration, generally.
Hold on,
Yeah,
it
try
was
to
a real
tell
simple.
them,
Hold
man.
on,
We're
hold on,
just
hold on, hold on,
man.
hold on, hold on, hold on. It
Which
was
I
a
would
real
offer
simple
better
message.
job
You can,
opportunities.
yeah,
which-
you could
yeah,
say it was,
yeah,
you could
I
say it
do
was a
that.
lie, and I would agree with you. But the real simple message was
Yeah.
this from the Trump campaign: was that masculinity is under attack. Men, you are being oppressed. You are under attack, and we will fix it. That was their
It's
message.
the same issue as the
That's
border.
true, yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. And both of you are exactly right. It's the same issue as the border. They lied about that just like they were lying about the masculinity issue. And
But the problem is
Democrats
Democrats didn't
capitulated and
even
allowed
say
them
that.
to define it. You're right. They let them define it.
the
Tim
Democrats
Walz
didn't
actually
talk.
finally did.
Yeah.
Tim Walz came out just this week
'Cause
saying,
immigration's
no,
a
like
right
we
issue.
allowed them.
It is to be a man without having any disdain or disregard for the concept itself. That's what they did. They
Right.
gave them a home where they're going to be respected and at least pandered to. Now, I don't have the full understanding of different political policies to say one way or the other what is or is not effective. But
He asked for
socially,
policy.
I can give you that. I can't give it to you,
Wait,
but I can
is there-
give you socially and marketing wise exactly why it's stronger on the right than it is on the left, and that is they
Sir,
have
sir,
a
I can answer your
concept of
question,
what
sir.
it means to be a man. And maybe you can on the political
Well,
side.
the reason
of
is,
things, but
no matter what
socially,
Republican
I get
policies
it.
there are, right? Like, it doesn't matter if they're not helping more men. It doesn't matter. What matters is the optics, and all they have to do, because we've seated on this ground, is nothing. They don't actually have to pander to men. They just have to know that most people have this concept of masculinity in, like I said, media and just like traditional society that is the default, right? And this is something that academics are working away from, progressive society is moving away from, but we're not even close to being there yet. And these concepts that Visora is talking about, which are all true, are just not widely accepted. So when we push these things in the mainstream, which we should, and we should get there eventually, this is very alienating to people who do not understand them. And we haven't done the legwork in, whether it's people in high school or wherever else you need to like societally disseminate these ideas for people to be on board. So all the Republicans have to do is say, hey, we're not changing
Just some
things.
housekeeping.
We're not making it
yeah,
weird.
just some housekeeping. My internet's
all Democrats
going in
need
and out. Just real quick, my internet's going in
Yeah.
and out. I really apologize for that. I don't know what's wrong. I know it is women's fault though. Okay, Prime, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So, but yeah. So I think to combine Xerxes and Soy's point, right? Like, I think you guys are saying something that has a level of ability to it, right? That people in their minds think like, well, this is a party of men, right? Whether that makes sense or doesn't make sense, right? We can adjudicate that a little later. And then I like what you said, Soy, that they don't actually have to deliver anything, right? They can,
But they
put forth
have.
optics, right? Oh, they have. So again, so
They have
maybe- so what
delivered some
policies-
stuff to men. It's just
What
like,
policies? Sure.
well, I mean, they got rid of women's autonomy. They got rid of abortion.
Wait,
They're
how?
working to get.
That's not-
They didn't get rid of abortion.
They got rid of abortion, not federally.
Then they overturned Roe v. Wade.
Would you
They didn't
allow
get
me
rid
to
of it.
speak? Are you going to ask me a
Go
question and then like speak over me the
Well, I
moment I
technically
start
didn't ask. I
speaking?
made a statement. but
Well,
go ahead.
go
No,
ahead.
they
Visora.
overturned Roe v.
Technically,
Wade. They're working towards banning no-fault divorce. They're
Oh
speaking
no! It'll be
regularly
hard to
on.
get a divorce. I'm sorry. I apologize. You go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, the no-fault divorce when your abusive husband is beating the fucking shit out of you, you should be
Now,
able to
case in
divorce
point,
them.
Now, case in point is that response, that immediate jump to the worst possible example of a male.
It's not the worst
is the
possible example. It's a
masculinity-
very common one
That's
that I've also
absolutely
had
the
to
worst
endure.
Possible. That's the
Oh.
worst possible interpretation of being
The
a young
worst,
man.
I could get
And because it's
significantly
coming
worse
from
than
the
that.
Democrats, I'm sure you
This-
can,
It's a-
We
right?
need to do
It's
them,
a
not all men
common
right
immediate
now.
response.
We need to do the men, not all men.
regularly
But
happens.
that's
Yeah, but
exact-
no,
but
not
that's
all
why
men.
they go for it. Exactly. They go
Yes,
for the
yeah,
not
just
all
because
men
you're-
because we
because they're
hear
dumb
the
enough
worst
that they need to
possible
hear that.
interpretation.
No,
now,
well,
what?
Xerxes,
No,
sorry,
no,
you're
no,
right
no,
about that.
their
Hold on, hold on.
Not because of
emotional
no fault
state is
divorce. People do not
damaged
like
enough
no
that
fault
they
I
need to hear
refuse to
that. It's not
accept
about being dumb.
I refuse to accept the grounds that just because some men do shitty things and women get to talk about that and say, hey, maybe we should have the right to divorce our husbands with,
Well, no,
let's
hold
say,
on.
no justifiable reason, quote
But there's two
unquote,
problems with this.
Let
There's actually
Visora
two
finish her-
problems.
because
Hold on,
it
let Visora finish and
regularly
then he goes on.
happens. I refuse to accept the framing that this is A, misinterest, B, negatively polarizing to men when men commit crimes on women and women say, I would rather you not do that, or I would rather have systems built that would protect me from this. I think that's a
Can I try giving
ridiculous
better
mindset.
example?
The
Because I
men
think
should
no
be
fault
held
divorce
Well,
is
accountable.
not
well,
very
here's the
good.
thing.
The men should be held accountable.
as much as I would like you to, Soy Pill, I think that this is a perfect encapsulation socially as to why males are hyper reactive
link
to this,
something?
right? Because it isn't to say that these awful males don't exist, but the problem is earlier in the conversation, I asked for a positive example of what masculinity is, and you couldn't give me that one. But
I
you
did.
could give me easily. You
I
could give me a
did give you them.
negative portrayal. Well, that was only
gave
after
you
we moved
several.
forward. That was only
Literally
after we
when I
moved forward
said,
into the
okay, let me,
conversation.
before I
But
answer your
understand,
question,
you have to listen. You have
explain
to listen.
my point of
You
view,
have to listen.
because we're
Yeah, hold on.
talking about our points of view. No, sorry, you get to cut me off regularly. I'm going to do the same to you. You asked me a question, and I said,
But
in a
this is the
debate
problem.
setting where we are talking about our views, my personal view is this, but I would offer these answers. You immediately jump on the very first thing I said, ignore everything else, because
didn't.
you like to pick and choose your arguments.
I'm not.
Because
I'm
you
making a
can't
point.
actually face one.
I'm making a point, and the point
Fragile
that I'm
little
making
shit
is
with your weak ass point.
the portrayal of what men are listening to and hearing coming from the Democrats is what you are displaying.
What are they listening and hearing coming from the Republicans?
You have to listen. It doesn't matter what they hear from the Republicans. We're talking about the Democrats right now. It doesn't matter.
No, but no, it does. When the Republicans are saying that rape should be legal and that women should be property, then yes, no. What literally Andrew Tate said that this week.
Okay.
He's not a Republican. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
He's a Republican figurehead.
Okay, we got it.
It doesn't matter.
We're circling.
Doesn't
We
matter.
know we got more
MAGA
people.
still looks
Hold
up
up.
to him.
We got more people in this debate. I want to get more
Now-
people in. Soy Pill's being very patient. He's being
Well,
very
hold on,
good
but you gotta
right
let
now.
me land the plane, and then I'll just let it go. But
You have 20 seconds, Cersei.
So give me 20
Land
minutes.
that fucking plane.
Alright.
20 seconds,
Okay, but when
Amelia
you land
Earhart.
the plane, I'm gonna
Go
let
ahead.
it go. The negative portrayal of males is very, very easy to come out of the mouth of a Democrat. Very many young men keep hearing this, and they don't want to keep hearing it. The positive portrayals of males is coming from the right. Now, whether they're actually effective literally, whatever, we're just talking about optics, as Soy Pill is saying. So go ahead.
Soy Pill, and then Prime,
So
and then Nasser.
I completely disagree with the no-fault divorce one because I think that's an incredibly unpopular idea. But Visora, to his point, the Harry Sisson thing you brought up is a very, good ideal of, hey, here's this democratic figurehead, and he is doing something that is traditionally masculine, which is being, having game, right? He's talking to all these beautiful women, and he's being fired for that, or he's stepping down, and everyone else in that democratic mainstream has to disown him. And young men want to be that, right? Young men see James Bond, they see Indiana Jones, they're like, oh, that's cool. He's like, he gets the woman, that's so cool. And this guy's doing it, and ostensibly is not, doing a Me Too thing where he's like, sexually assaulting anyone.
It's not even illegal. It's just
maybe
wrong.
he
He's
lied
just
to them.
asshole.
That could have been. I don't know the full story, but the point is, they see that coming from the Democratic Party. It's like, oh, you're being a little too into women. Get out of here, right? So that's the messaging they hear from the left. And you said, oh, it doesn't matter. Zer said it doesn't matter what the right is saying, and to a degree, he's right. All they have to do is not that, right? They have some positive messaging.
That's not even the majority of the left, though. It's literally
out of the
just the
mainstream
establishment
visible
Democrats.
aspects of the left, unfortunately.
It's
Okay.
the
They're also,
establishment
they're writing
Democrats.
the
But yeah, you're right. It is the most
Democrats are
visible.
unfortunately
You're
the
right.
ones
You're
with
right.
power right now,
I just because we're in a actual intellectual setting, I just wanted to add a little bit of nuance to it. But you are right in your entirety.
That's the trap you keep falling into, and I keep saying it's like a negative. It really is.
I'm sorry, but I don't think that dumbing us down is a good idea.
I'm talking like we're in an intellectual setting, but like that's the problem. This country is not an intellectual setting, and these people are like just so susceptible to the easiest arguments. And if the argument is, I understand, but like if it's like, hey, what do the Democrats need to do?
1.5% was the difference.
I wish to God that everyone was as smart as you, Visora, and we just understood the nuance of, hey, like there are good and bad parts of masculinity, and we shouldn't embody those bad parts. But unfortunately, you have thousands, if not millions, of young men who look at this and they get turned off in so easily as, oh, you denounced me for masculinity, or they just hear the word toxic masculinity and they're immediately off.
So how do we get to change? Wait, I have an actual question for you, Soy Pill. How do we improve this without discussion of these topics, like in the academic?
I can't answer that question better than you.
Hold on, let's Soy Pill. Then we got Prime. Then we got Nasser. Come on, we gotta.
I can answer that question.
BassFz, just hold it in. Hold it in your heart.
I know you did.
Okay, you'll get.
No, I'm landing the plane. Get out of the cockpit, buddy. All right. Okay,
we're co-pilots. What do you mean? We are co-pilots.
You have aviators on? Get out of here.
I'm right next to you. What are you talking about?
Soy Pill, you are surprisingly based.
Okay, so look, it's going to sound dumb. That's because you have to make dumb appeals sometimes. Sometimes you have to play this ground. So you look at how Democrats after post-election have been trying to be like, well, maybe Hassan, maybe he's the Joe Rogan. Now, unfortunately, Hassan hates the Democrats, and he does not embody most of what mainstream Democrats are going to do. So what we need is a Hassan-type figure, or those kinds of people. You know, if you're going to pump out these weird little Twinkie, Harry Sisson, Dean, whatever they're called, right? You need them to be a little more masculine, traditionally masculine. Not in a toxic way, but, you know, they need to be like fitness influencers. They need to say, hey, look, like, this is how you treat a woman well, but here, look, I'm with a woman. Now, Dean Withers and those people, like, they have tried this, but unfortunately, and this sucks, their appearance does not emanate masculinity to most people. They look at that and they're like, that's a little Twinkie soy boy. And so it's unfortunate, but yeah, you do need to just play this game of there just needs to be more people that are like a little more traditionally masculine.
We do got to get more people.
We need an Alex Jones.
We got to get more people in here.
We do not need an Alex Jones.
Hold on.
Someone who's met Alex Jones.
Hold on. Prime, then Nasser, go ahead.
Sure. I just want to push back on this idea that Republicans have actually delivered anything that is like pro-male, right? Like no-fault divorce. I mean, like I searched it up and it's like, well, no-fault divorce, like the repeal against that has stalled across the country. And no-fault divorce is a state issue, not a national issue. So Trump can like talk about it, and he has, right? But he can't actually do anything about it. And then even state Republican parties have like put like no effort to actually make this happen. So they haven't delivered that, right? Like, you know, restricting abortion access, like that's like a weird thing to say that's necessarily pro-male in any real sense of the term. No, but that was her example. That was her example.
Yeah. Can I justify why I said that was pro-male? If you, because you said it was a bit weird, so I'm wondering if you maybe didn't get it properly. But if you did, go on.
I just my point is that like there's like I think what we were saying previously, these policies are illusionary, right? And we shouldn't even give ground on that. The Republicans have somehow delivered for men in any material way. Like I don't think that's real.
The delivery is a delusion.
Yeah, no,
the delivery is not for this generation of male. It's supposed to be for the next generation of male.
No, it's an illusion that was delivered.
Please, come on, please. So I think at the same time, though, and this is to your point, I think, Visora, right? Your other point is that I think we can actually still have adult conversations. Now, I stand by what I was saying previously, and that, like, when we're talking, especially to young men, right, we need to have a very clear, understandable message toward them about like what masculinity is supposed to be. However, right, beyond that, if someone is acting badly, and I have no opinion on the system thing, right, I don't care. But like, if men are actually badly, we should be able to regulate that, right? We should be able to say that, hey, that this individual within our group like is toxic, right? We shouldn't replicate what we see on the right, and just to say like, well, we don't want to be accused of being too feminine, right? By saying this guy who's being abusive or whatever the case might be, right? That we don't want to get rid of him because he's popular.
Okay, respond to that real quick, and then we go to Nasser.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify really quickly that, like, in it, when I said that these were policies that the Republicans were delivering for men and that most were illusions, it is the illusion of returning to the traditional, like, nuclear family male system of, like, the hierarchy of, like, the man of the house is in charge and the man of the house gets to make the decisions, but also the man of the house has all this extra responsibility. It's that, like, the idea of that traditional family is what they've given to men on the right. Whether or not it's actually been implemented is a whole other thing. But to be fair, like, most of what MAGA believes is a delusion anyway. So like, it doesn't really physically have to be tangible.
I wonder, the messaging is there, regardless of whether or not they're delivering. I think Prime, we probably agree that they're not actually delivering.
Yeah. I think that, like, in Nasser, I'm going to let you go after this, right? I'll let you respond to this first. But I think maybe we're all overthinking it. There is this perception, and I think it isn't entirely unwarranted, that Democrats and the left in general do not care about men, right? That we do not care about men, that we prioritize women, minorities, etc., over white, straight men.
Are there no men minorities?
Well, I don't think Republicans care about men.
Again, I'm talking about perception. I'm
talking that would be my counter argument to that.
I understand.
Like Republicans, Democrats do care about men.
Republicans are at least seen as
doing
at least
things,
giving lip service to this
Can
idea.
I give an example?
Can I please finish my point, and then yes, I'll let you all talk. Okay, but this
Hey, how about me?
yeah, again, let me finish my goddamn point, and then yes, you can all respond to it. I promise you. But you gotta let me get it out, okay? Please, jeez. Okay. Always talking over the man in the panel. All you feminine. Anyway, sorry. Okay, but no.
Yeah.
They at least give lip service to this idea of men, you have lost your way, and we're going to help you out. You are being downtrodden upon. Whereas in a lot of cases, men are told to sit down, right? It's not your turn. And we spent this for years. For years, the left said, men, you just sit down. You need to be quiet. Women are speaking. Minorities are speaking. It's not your turn. You've had it too good for too long. And that has been, it wasn't the majority of Democrats saying this, but enough were that it became, it became a thing, and people internalized it, and people believed it, and that is, unfortunately, how we are seen. The Democrats are seen as people who do not care about men, and not only that, they actively work against men in some cases. Now, I'm not saying that's true.
You're right.
I'm just saying that's
I
how
think it is
it's
true.
seen.
I
Okay,
think it is true. I just think that it's everyone.
I want to go to Nasser because
The
Nasser's been waiting.
Democrats.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, we're the greatest country. We're the greatest country. America's the greatest country. I'm gonna say it. But I think Democrats. I think what Democrats excel at is actually not making the men and women issues a versus issue, because constantly when you look at the right, it tends to be more of like a confliction of men versus women. Where
Yeah, but what do you think feminism is then?
What do you think feminism is?
Yeah, if
I
you
think
have
men,
men,
isn't it?
men versus women.
I don't think
how could-
feminism.
how would you believe that?
Have you read
Feminism was
Feminism-
never
I
a
think feminism-
Democrat policy.
They never needed to
Boy
be
needs
that.
streets in
Like,
my
yeah,
area,
literally,
literally,
yeah.
right?
The identity-
where
the
do
identity
leftists and
politics
feminists
side.
literally live in, though. They live on
Where-
the Democratic.
Mate,
left
no,
wing
your
on
side, the
spectrum.
Republicans are
No,
the
Visora.
identity politics
Sorry,
side.
don't give them that space, right? Because like what
I'm
Nasser
not
was just
gonna
trying
give
to
them that
say is
space.
actually exactly
Yeah,
right.
but
like it's
but
not
that
that
would be operating
Yeah,
in
they're
because
not
you're
in
thinking
the-
like third
Hold on,
wave.
hold on,
one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, one at a
Man-hating
time.
feminists.
I want to
And I'm
take it
thinking
from them.
Just yeah.
Well, Nasser's correct here. That like they're not actually in
you.
contention. So you're saying feminism, right? Like that it must be like men versus women. That's not feminism. Like, that's a person who has like a feminism was a one-on-one
problem.
understanding of the situation, right? And you don't like again, like it's not feminism was never. Well, sorry, I should say never, right? But the mainstream
We're supposed to be helping
feminism-
men too in the process. Of
yeah,
helping
like
women.
like
yeah.
by
Why is it
like
called
exact like
feminism?
maternal
But-
leave,
Start
right?
level one.
It's not like people are like, for instance, maternal leave, right? They're not just fighting for maternal leave.
Nice
because
simply-
They're
the right
fighting for
bastardized
paternal.
feminism.
Hold on.
May I simply explain
Hold
this?
on. I'm like a few sentences, and I'm
Go,
almost
go.
done. I swear to God, right? So yeah, it's like looking at like maternity leave, right? They're not just fighting. Feminists aren't fighting just for maternity leave. They're fighting for paternity leave. They're fighting for the idea that men would also want to take care of their children, right? Give them that space. These things aren't actually in contention. People want to paint them that way. That's not actually the case. Done.
Yeah, because when you look at it, when you look at the Republicans, it's kind of like a rural kind of mindset where camaraderie is actually a big thing with rural. Because I work blue collar jobs, I know I work a blue collar job right now. There's a lot of camaraderie, but when you look at like the Democrats, it's more like a corporate setting, and there's HR, and then there's generally bureaucracy and all that stuff. So you kind of get that kind of mindset of like how how they roll the government.
I will be
Everyone's
reading
kind of
super
really
chats.
equal, but, yeah.
Hold on, just housekeeping. I'll be reading super chats in about 10 minutes. So keep
Okay.
sending me your money, gang. Keep giving me all your money. That
Yeah,
is
send them all the money.
The
Make 'em rich.
more
Also,
money you
me
give, the
chat.
more masculine you are, young men. Okay, the more ladies you will get. If the $10 super chat, that's one date. A $50 super chat, that's first base. Okay, $100,
You know
you
what
go
is
all the way.
interesting?
Anyway, go ahead.
Really quickly. One, the idea of why feminism is good for men is because the base concept is the idea of patriarchy means that
It
men
holds
are
them
responsible.
accountable.
No, it's not that. It's
Well,
that men are
men hold men
responsible
accountable
for
as
all
it
of
is.
these. Shut the fuck up for 10 seconds. I'm
Why are
giving
you
you a
telling me to
definition.
shut up? He also cut
Yeah, I'm
it
telling
too.
you both.
you're more
I'm
wrong.
telling all
Sorry,
of
I'm
you.
sorry.
Everyone, shut up. Let Visora finish, but then Visora will shut up
Speaking of
while you go.
patriarchy-
Okay.
I will. The patriarchy oppresses men just as much as women because men are now put in charge of having to do all of the work outside of the house. You're like, men have to go to work, they have to come home, they have to feed the family, they have to be able to afford this. If you can't afford food for your family, then you're a failure of a man. You have to go die in war. Like, all of this is patriarchy. Feminism just says none of this shit needs to be all on the man, and none of the house shit needs to be all on the women. We're all people. We can work this out amongst ourselves like regular people. Secondly, the other topic that you brought it to, Nasser, you're exactly right. And this is actually one of the things that I give the right props for. They have actual community. They speak to each other in person. They have the rural right-wing camaraderie comes from that sense of community, whereas America as a whole has
almost
gone too far towards
nasty
hyper-individualism. Well, I mean, like, they can get that way, but the Democrats are also far too hyper-individualistic, as America is as a whole. It is a matter of not left and right here. That's a class distinction of up versus down. Ironically, it tends to be some of the poor in rural areas who actually have formed community, and it is more people need to form community as you get poorer, because community is how we've gone through hard times for like all of human history.
Hey,
I want to give Visora. Can I give Visora an example though? Because I want her to understand this, because she's not doing this, and this is like an example of like how we should be doing it. So like when someone says, "Hey, I think feminism is like this man-hating, dividing ideology," and you give a very nuanced explanation right that is exactly how you have to talk to people. Although maybe less condescending. To be fair, I'm sure you wouldn't be talking to Zers in public like that. But like, you know, it's a debate stage. I get it. But the problem is when you go into these college settings. Let's say I were to go up to a woman in a gender studies class. I've done this before, not this specifically, but said something like, "Oh, you know, men have a disproportionate loss of children in divorce cases," and they'll say, instead of, which this is true, "Hey, there are reasons behind that," or this is why this is happening, or "Hey, that's actually part of the patriarchy," and explaining it. It's just, that's not as important right now. And it's not. It's true. What they're saying is true. It's much less of a big topic, but the perception is just this immediate rejection and this pushing away from a man's problem, which is a thing.
And we need to work. I think as men, we need to work to reframe that.
But even hold on, I'm gonna let Cersei go. Just real quick, I'm gonna let Cersei go right after this because he deserves to go right after this.
And I just wanted to say this is the exact same thing, and I think this is a terrible.
This idea that you just said, like you just said it in this conversation that they say it's not that important, it's not as important right now, and it's not as important right now is one of the reasons, that mindset is one of the reasons that we're struggling. Is because
I'm agreeing. I am saying that
accurately, the young men today accurately intuit that for Democrats, not all of them, but for Democrats, they are just not as important right now.
Right. So that messaging is bad. And I wanted to give a very, I think, hitting home example. I think everyone has seen this before. When Democrats or anyone has talked about affirmative action and said the word white privilege, right? You say, well, why? You're a young white male and you don't understand the history of all of this stuff. And you say, why are all these people getting this advantage over me? And someone comes up to you like, you don't get it. You don't understand. They're right. Their frustration's correct. It's not ahistorical. It's based in decades of oppression. But explaining that to someone is very difficult. And instead of doing that, they just say, oh, you don't get that because you're privileged. And you just completely dismiss them. And that drives them to the right, who just have these false arguments that, hey, oh, cool. Being white is awesome. Come over here and we'll give you benefits. We'll have an all-white scholarship or whatever the frick. Look, like Donald Trump's trying to do.
If someone asked me to explain affirmative action to them, all I would say is that's the reason why Biden became VP under Obama. That's what affirmative action is.
But again,
because that way it also shows
Democrats aren't.
No, I know. But like doing it this way, like as an example, saying, oh yeah, if someone's like, what's DEI or what's affirmative action? You say, oh, that's the reason Biden was VP under Obama. It also adds in the fact that men do benefit from DEI and so do white people. In fact, white women were the highest recipients of DEI grants, but like still, it is, to be fair, I was also against affirmative action.
Women?
White women?
Yes, white women were the primary, yeah.
What a hilarious failure of that concept, eh?
Well,
women are.
Come on, but guys, like you would have to understand.
It is Cersei's turn, so Cersei, go ahead.
But like,
and then 5 minutes in super chats. So, yeah.
Which kind of sucks, actually. I think that like, if this policy ultimately ended up helping a bunch of white women out, no offense, but young men are going to be able to see that they're not getting the. And I'm not even going to say preferential treatment. They're not getting the so-called privileges of being a male that is constantly berated and bombarded at them.
But then you again, just as far as optics are concerned, you're seeing another party, or even if it isn't a party, another social sphere that is saying it's all right for you to be a male. It's a good thing you're a male. You should be a male. And here are all your different positive attributes. It makes sense that, let's just talk about custody, for example. I think it's important that Wick pointed it out, because the framing is saying that we don't care if you don't get to see your children. Well, if a man who cares about his children are being told by one political party that's not important right now, why should he support them? Why should he want to go over there and help them out if he cares about his family, which is the actual direct close people to him? It doesn't make any sense.
Wait, hold on.
Why he would even think that way?
I have an actual.
It doesn't matter what they're doing. You keep doing tit for tat. It doesn't matter. I don't even know.
They're not doing anything either, though.
What we're seeing.
Guys, let Cersei finish. Let Cersei finish.
I have a neutral question.
Hold on. Yeah, you can ask after he's finished. Cersei, finish your thing, and then. Yeah.
So to land the plane here, and I would like her question. It's like, no matter how we cut the cookie of whether or not, or the tit for tat of what are the Republicans actually doing, I give the ghost. It doesn't matter what they're doing. What young men are seeing is a political party that does not care about them, and sometimes actively has a disdain for different qualities that are inherent to them. I think, like white people or young white men, I think it makes sense for them to look at any DEI, and be like, well,
you are speaking for all the white men right now. I give you the crown.
Think about it. Yeah. And I'll give them this one because it's important. It's like, okay, you explain, diversity to me because of the history of oppression. I live in a trailer park. What I got to do with me? That's fair for a white person or a young white man to be like, I don't have this power you're proclaiming I have. I don't have this experience. So it's like, why am I being punished for something over here? Why am I being told to eat shit over here when I had nothing to do with me? That's an important thing that needs to be asked and discussed. Who actually says we're going to help you out? The Republicans.
Yeah, Cersei, that's
okay, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. I got to get to Super Chats. I got to make a little money. This is my bread and butter. And then after that, Visora will ask her question and we'll move on from there. Cool. Good. Great. Let's get me some money. Okay, $2 from Cameraman502. Men relate shoulder to shoulder. Thank you for the $2. $5 from Joe the Mig. Equating the basic responsibilities of protecting your family and earning money to care for them with a system of oppression is a genuine psychosis. Thank you for the $5. $10 from Miles Kinslow. Democrats have not only abandoned positive masculinity, but have embraced toxic female behaviors, victim mentality, manipulation, patronization, etc. Thank you for the $10. J-Mac, thank you for the gifted 50 gifted Wick memberships. Welcome to the show. Really appreciate you. $2 from Joe the Mig. Are we pretending fourth wave feminism doesn't exist? $5 from Joe the Mig. Democrats do care about men, quote unquote, from the party that, through policy, has crippled the development of men and boys in K-12 and higher education. $2 from Feder Methodist. I got nothing. Your panel is answer enough. Thank you for the $2. $5 from Old School. I've generally seen more women in the stat classes I teach. I generally see more men in the linear algebra calculus classes I teach. But math is masculine. $5 from Two Links. To the ones who believe in toxic masculinity. Oh, I'm just going to get through these real quick. Sorry. To the ones who believe in toxic masculinity. One challenge. Name an inherently male trait that can't be applied to women that is positive. That'll be something we can do after I get through these. 10 pounds from Jacob Buckingham. Oh, Buckingham, very British name. America thinks masculinity is Hulk Hogan. Britain thinks it's Winston Churchill. Be more like Britain. Thank you for that 10 pounds. And then, finally, $5 from Testicle Johnson. Dems clearly have a masculinity problem. Instead of learning to change a tire or lifting weights, they play Dungeons & Dragons and hand paint Warhammer 40,000 dolls.
Ooh, Colin,
those are still masculine activities.
Okay.
What
yeah, those are still masculine activities.
Everyone's more mad about that last comment than anything else. But yeah.
They're attacking him.
Yeah. No, hold on. Visora had a question, and I want to let her give her space to ask that question.
Well,
go ahead.
Honestly, I forgot my question at this point, but I've got several other points that came up in that time span. One being an answer to the question of name a trait. There is no inherent trait that belongs to any, humans aren't inherently anything besides social.
Well, can I ask you a
Everything
question?
else is
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Do you
please.
have a concept of toxic femininity? Could you lay out or dissertate? What would that look like? Just real fast.
Well, I can, systemic or interpersonal, because they'd be
Let's
different.
Go with interpersonal. Let's just go with that.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's plenty of like women that also abuse their boyfriends and then like pretend that they're the ones being abused. That happens, not often, and like enough that it is
So they call it, like,
overtaking the
Darvo?
other.
What they call it?
Like
My
it's not
anecdotal
the
version of that.
I have a good
But
one.
that,
for
My
you.
that
anecdotal
exists.
version of
That exists. There's
my-
also the type
Can
of
I-
person. Hold on, because I just want one more, because this
Yeah,
one's really important.
go
This one
ahead.
pisses me
Sorry.
off
I
that
wanna
when
talk
people
about
do
women.
it. It's when it's like I've seen a lot of women do this when they do something as a mistake in general, just like an accident. I've seen a lot of women go, "Oh well, I'm just a girl," and that
They
pisses me
infantilize
off.
themselves. Mhm.
Yeah, the
So then,
infantilization.
could you define
Confidence.
toxic masculinity? Just real fast.
It's when you do something that has a negative effect on the people around you or yourself in trying to embody traditionally masculine ideals. In the same way, exactly
that's
what
the
you just
smart
said for
answer.
femininity was perfect. It was, hey, sometimes people see femininity as being servile or like, a little more like weak or like, hey, subservient. And in doing so, like diminish themselves and like, oh, I'm just a dumb woman, right? In the same way, the example I was going to give is, woman
Now I have one
embody this
final
effeminate,
question.
real quick.
No,
I
I'm
have
gonna,
one
I'm
final
gonna
answer.
give
I
Soy
still
Pill.
have an answer.
Hold on. I'm
Yeah,
gonna give Soy
But
Pill the
my
space
final-
to denigrate women. Soy Pill, go ahead, please.
Right. So like
My
women,
final question puts it all
traditionally try
together,
to
but go ahead.
crash that plane, man. Okay, so women traditionally try to like make themselves look better with makeup or dresses, and that's like a feminine trait. There's nothing wrong with that inherently, but a toxic feminine trait would be, hey, in order to make myself look better, I'm going to demean, degrade, or otherwise do something mean to some other woman so that I look good in comparison. This is toxic femininity, right? So it's just not. It's not masculinity is bad.
I have an add-in.
femininity is
I have
bad.
an add-in. I have an add-in because it's not just making other people's lives more miserable, it's also making your own lives miserable. I covered this
feel
on my
as well,
stream
yeah,
last
I
week
agree.
of watching Jesse Waters talking about how he has 3 rules for men. One
soup.
being no soup in public, no crossing your legs, and no drinking out of a straw. To which someone was like, oh, but he was drinking a milkshake. To which Jesse Waters replies, well, you shouldn't be drinking milkshakes.
Yeah.
Milkshakes
Yay.
are for
Yeah,
kids.
the modern
is
standards. Of,
Unironically,
like,
this is both gender ideology
men
and
culture.
mental illness. That's toxic masculinity. Honestly, I would go further and say the push to return to family values is toxic gender ideology. Period. Like,
Hold
it's
on.
not just one or the
No.
other. No. Not the
I wouldn't
idea
even
of
agree
Let her
with
finish.
that.
Let her finish. Let her
I mean,
explain. Let her explain. Let her
I
explain.
mean the media push for this, not the idea of like traditional family values. Those aren't toxic in and of themselves. It's the coordinated campaign of this is the right way to be, the Christian traditional family values
Oh,
that
the
need to be
nuclear.
Yeah, like the current
the
administration's
toxic nuclear.
Well, see, even
Yeah,
that,
that's the
Visora, if you
toxic-
Hold
say
on,
that,
I
you've just
disagree with
alienated
this
so many
entire-
people who
hold
have
on,
totally
if I
held
may,
I don't
Soy
care
Pill.
about alienating the right, to be honest.
Yeah,
like,
well,
I'm never
okay, well,
trying to
then let's
message
keep
on MAGA.
losing, I
If I
guess.
may.
Hold on.
That's the whole
No,
point of this
because
debate.
wait, hold on.
Most-
Yeah.
84 million Americans didn't vote. More than half the country did not vote.
Yeah, and these
I
people
worry
who
about
aren't as
messaging
clued
to
in as
them
you and
over
aren't as smart
MAGA.
as you hear that, and they're like, "What? You don't like a nuclear family?" Because they don't understand what you're saying. So you can't come out with that. That messaging is bad, unfortunately. Even though you're right, it's bad.
No,
messaging.
she's not. Hold on.
Do you
Ah,
think
stop.
that I would
Yeah.
message it?
All
of
Do you
you.
think that
Right.
I would
Okay.
be messaging it
Okay.
like this if I was trying to
Enough.
do propaganda?
If I
Enough.
was Ben Shapiro, I
Enough.
would clip what you just
Enough,
said
because
and
this is
blast it
important.
everywhere.
This is
Please
important.
do.
This has to be said. If
I
I may.
won't, 'cause I'm
Ow!
not
Oh my
gonna
God!
go
You guys
right
just
winger,
keep
but-
talking, and is this on? Hello?
have
Can
so
you
much
hear
to
me?
say.
Hello? Hello? Is this on? Okay. It's not just bad
I
messaging.
think you're muted, Wick.
That's funny. The idea that you were telling people that the idea of having family values is bad, or at least
Or toxic.
is toxic because it
right there.
promotes this
Wick totally
normative.
gets
If
it.
I may,
This is
if I may
shadowboxing.
finish, if I may finish,
This is
right?
shadowboxing. but
I'm not
okay.
shadowboxing because what you said in your comment was it creates this toxic normativity that this is how people should be. And here's
not
the
what I said.
problem is that most people, especially young men, they want a family.
Wick, you're
They
proving
want a
my point
family.
all
That's
the
not
time.
what I said.
Visora, do you
That's
see
Yeah,
not
but
what I
that is
said.
the
Totally
implication.
confused
totally
what you-
got it
You
wrong.
too
use
often
the
you
term
didn't explain it
toxic.
right.
Hold on. Toxic just as its connotation. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a bad thing.
Thank you. All right. So what are you implying when you say that sentence? What do people hear?
Well, do you know
Socially,
what
what are they
wait,
hearing?
Zerst, do you know what an
I
adjective is?
literally said
I know exactly
that
what
the
adjective is. Yeah,
traditional
it's a descriptive
family
word.
values in and of themselves are not negative. It's
What else
the
did you
media
say?
Yeah, but you
campaign
need
push
to
for
make
them.
it dumber.
Yeah,
That's what
yes,
I'm
yes,
saying.
yes.
Sorry.
You need to make it stupider. Be stupider. Say
Okay,
it
okay,
right
okay.
right now.
Stupid.
Let me
Five.
let me bring this down to the MAGA level.
Family
Family good,
positive.
Republican bad. Andrew
all right,
Tate bad,
all right,
Donald
all right.
Trump
You also
bad,
have to-
family
but you-
good.
Wait a minute, Viz, but you also have to olive branch, because if you keep harping on just like the one aspect of it, and you alienate so
Educational
many
Republican
people,
as
so
well.
you just gotta work on olive branching your messaging.
Look,
And I think that's what
realistically-
Democrats really need to do. They need to
No.
work on
Hold on.
that
Xerxes,
olive
yeah,
branches
hold on.
right in a
Xerxes had
way,
one more question. He said he had
unfortunately.
one more question that he says will tie it all
Okay.
together, and we'll give him the
Promise he
space
has
to do
more.
it. So go ahead. You had one more question.
So
tie it
the one
together.
final question to tie it all together is, why is it that there's more of a stronger focus on toxic masculinity than toxic femininity? Why is it that we
No one
critically
answers.
focus
Why do you
men
on
do-
this?
Why do
When
you
women
think
are
this?
toxic, they make a man cry. When men get toxic and mad about their masculinity, they shoot up a building.
Bingo.
When's the last time? Okay,
And
name
that's
me a
what
female
young men
mass
do.
shooter.
Thank you.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Well,
Okay,
take the
great.
bait.
So what? It's true. It's
No,
literally
it's
true.
true. He
It's
doesn't
not
get
my
it. He doesn't
problem.
get it.
But that's
Go ahead.
extreme.
No, hold on.
It's not
So-
extreme. It
branching.
happens
Hold on.
literally
Prime.
every
Let's give it to
day.
Prime. Prime.
They don't even
Prime.
have to
Oh,
try.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
hold
sorry.
on.
I
But
can't point out the
this
fact
is-
that men keep
Bizarre-
shooting up
Bizarre,
buildings
Okay.
when
Bizarre.
women don't.
Okay.
Bizarre,
Name me a woman mass shooter. Find me one.
please.
Sure, there was one. There was a woman who shot
Yeah,
up
we-
a school
yeah,
the other
yeah, we
day,
do
like a
have
couple
female
months ago.
shooters,
But
but
go
very
ahead.
There's two actually,
Hold on.
two recently.
Yeah, yeah,
Doesn't
but they're
matter.
quite rare.
Yeah, but men are better.
Sure, they are
They're
rare.
quite
Yes, but go ahead.
But anyway, but like, to her point, right? Like, like it's not simply like mass shooter, right? Like, when men grow up in a world that like tells them that they have to deny their emotions, right? They can't actually cry, they can't show themselves, they can't share themselves with their partner. When that is like the form of masculinity that's pushed, right? Then these emotions get bottled up, and then they act out in horrible ways. So, like, yeah, of course, mass shooter, but like in a more tangible sense, domestic violence is a real thing. Right, we can understand
Half
this.
the time,
That's
I'm
what
saying
we
you get
should
me
hold on, hold on.
dumber.
Accountable.
Visora,
You're
That's not everyone.
telling
Visora,
me to
I'm trying
get
help
it
you out.
dumber.
Visora,
I
please.
know.
Let Prime finish.
Why?
Let Prime
No, no.
finish.
Let me finish
You're
helping
right,
you.
I'm
Let me
curious.
stop
Why
talking.
can you get
Stop
to go
talking.
into nuance?
Stop talking.
Why do you get to do
my
nuance?
God.
and
It's
I
his
have
turn to
my
talk.
own?
It's Prime's turn to talk. Prime lives
Literally
matter.
is.
Prime
He is
lives
agreeing
matter.
with me.
Prime lives
He is
matter.
correct.
Okay.
He's saying the nuance part that I would have said if y'all didn't keep saying that I need to dumb it down. I'm agreeing with you, Prime. I just don't understand why you get to say
The
it.
point.
It doesn't
I
matter.
think you're
Bookmark. The
proving.
point is
It's because
Xerxes isn't gonna get it.
because of my black privilege. So
Wait, right there. No, wait, Prime. That's
Yeah,
a perfect
so, like,
example.
I think
If
Prime
Zeus
was
asked you,
proving
yeah,
that
but like,
point, too.
why doesn't black
just wrap it
privilege
up?
exist?
Just wrap it up very quickly. Yeah, just wrap it up very
Does.
quickly. That like yeah. So we have like domestic violence. We have like I don't know, these general attitudes towards women. I think actually also are part of it, right? Like this general disdain for women, to think that women are like conniving, controlling. I think these are
Where would that come from?
signs that we're cultivating a masculinity that's not actually in harmony with the things around it, right? So that's not femininity. That it's in opposition when it doesn't have to be in opposition. So when we talk about like the consequences of toxic masculinity versus femininity, right? Usually, like, yeah, like the worst of it is life and death, right? And the rest of it is like literally making the lives of the women around, like subjugating the women around them. Like, so like it tends to be from what I see, and you can maybe give me examples where it's more the other way,
give you
right?
I can.
Okay, please. So like you can maybe give me examples more the other way, but it seems to be that on whole that the consequences are disastrous for toxic masculinity. In a way, it's not the other way around.
Well, here's the thing. Let's give you an example, right? Let's talk about true cuckoldry, and that is to say, when a young lady is no, this is important. This is real people's lives. You can't laugh. Seriously. Because
Don't
think about it.
Republicans call you,
If
like,
hold
John's from
on,
Daddy?
Let him speak.
I want to hear about
That's
the
why I said
cuckoldry.
true
Go ahead. The
cuckoldry.
true
That's why I said true
cuckoldry.
cuckoldry.
The cuckoldry
And
that
which is to say-
extends beyond
I'll
the
explain.
normal
Mhm.
false cuckoldry to the true,
Yes, exactly.
pure
Right.
essence.
And let me
Go
explain.
ahead.
Let me
Yeah,
explain.
I want to hear.
This
I
is
want to
a
hear.
very important concept, because what an actual cuckolding situation is when an organism, in this case, we're going to talk about, women, gets impregnated by a different person, and then they have their husband or their boyfriend raise a child that is not theirs. This is a serious issue that can affect the child medically, as in they can't even get the correct blood transfusion from their father because it's not their real father. This is an issue that affects young men directly because they're investing resources in children that aren't theirs. This affects them in custody. So when we look at this and we talk about toxic femininity, we talk about the deception of lying and having someone invest resources in a child that's not theirs for years, this may not be life or death, but this is years of emotional trauma that you're giving to a child and to a father, a would-be father, to said child. Now, the point of me bringing this up is because, hold on, you asked for an example. Hold on. You asked for an example, and I'm giving you an example of what I would say is toxic femininity.
I thought you were done.
And this is the problem. But this is the problem. You disregard the lifetime, even if it is a minority, you are quick to disregard the life that a person and a child would be living through that experience.
I'm not disregarding. Okay, so that sounds bad, and I can imagine that'd be awful.
You can't say,
right?
see, you're still disregarding it.
No, stop
Let
trying to
Prime finish.
emotions. I'm just trying to respond to you. So, my simple question to you is, right, like, okay, acknowledging your cuckoldry, right, some things that are on your mind, acknowledging that, right, and then stacking that up against domestic violence, against not just domestic violence, but the general sexual violence directed towards women. In your opinion, I'm asking you, are these two things equal? Is that how you see it in your mind?
No, not necessarily equal. I think that's foolish to look at every single question as whether it's equal or not. The question is, why do we disregard this behavior so quickly? And the reason why I'm looking at this is because we're not taking the emotional damage that happens to males very seriously, but there's another side that is. And that's the right-leaning side that's taking it seriously. Or at least it has the appearance of it.
Let's give it to Soy. Let's give it to Soy.
Wait. I want to ask a question to Xerxes' point.
If you're going to start the Xerxes machine, the Overton window is going to be thrown
He just
off
made a
of the
play. He
fucking
just made
cliff.
a. I know, but he made a claim, and I want to.
Okay, let's give it to Soy. Hasn't gone in a while. Let's give it to Soy first, then Visora. That's the order we're going to go in.
This all spawned off of this very silly false dichotomy that yes, obviously there are men's problems that need to be addressed, and in rejecting those, this is what I said at the beginning. If your messaging is that's not important right now, even if that's true, and it is true to a degree, it's not. It's going to alienate a whole shitload of people. The problem is that toxic. 1 second. Let me finish. The toxic masculinity and toxic femininity are both existing things. They're not the same thing. In the same way, white privilege and black privilege probably both exist, and they're not the same thing, right? Like the problem is the framing of this as, oh well, why are we talking about this and not this? Because a bunch of people have this ahistorical take on it, and unfortunately, if you explain it to them like this, if I was talking to a layman, they would be completely lost. They'd be like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm a white guy in a trailer park. What the fuck do you mean I have white privilege?" So you can't come at it like that. You can't come at it as you have this positive and somehow like explain this in a systemic sense, because right now everyone's trying to explain to you the difference between toxic masculinity and femininity, and it's not working because unfortunately you have a very narrow scope of these things. We need to talk about these dumber. I'm sorry.
Well, ironically, the problem.
Hold on, before you answer, hold on, Bass. Before you answer, Visora had a question. You can answer them both. When Visora gives you a question,
what has the Republican Party functionally done to show men that they care about?
I'll give you.
They don't have
nothing. Nothing. It doesn't change the core of my argument. You do understand that, right?
I do, but
okay, thank you.
You're not getting my argument. Is that the entire delusion here? Is that the Democrats hate men, and it's an entire delusion manufactured
but it
and
isn't
manufactured
because when I just gave you an example of how toxic femininity, lies and deception can destroy the life of a man and a child, you disregarded it offhand.
No, I went literally not at all.
Prime played.
I didn't. Wait, hold the fuck up. You're saying that I disregarded this shit.
He's saying Prime did. He said Prime did. Hold on, Visora. He's saying Prime did.
He was talking to me first.
I know, but
he was talking to me. He said
I included you guys together.
Let me take that a step further. That's real. Okay, but how often is that happening versus
what difference does it make?
It makes a difference in scale.
How?
Because numbers of people suffering from like, are you retarded, mate? Can you not understand scale of numbers?
Okay. If one person was cuckolded, we say that's one relative to 1 million people, right?
Sure.
The problem is that's still a human being that has lived a life.
What is this?
Now, what is this? What I'm saying is when we bring up these male issues, you say literally, what is this? when we bring up male issues, again, in real time, I'm showing you guys,
out of this
we're
topic.
playing
I don't
tit for
care about
tat.
this kink
We're
bullshit.
playing tit
I don't
for
care
tat,
about the kink
and you're
bullshit.
disregarding it.
You want to know how the
But
Democrats
it's
are
not
going to
a
win?
kink. This
By
is, listen,
disregarding
look in the
idiots like
mirror.
this one.
Look
No,
in
fuck
the
you.
mirror.
Disregarding
Stop.
Xerxes is how
Okay.
Democrats win. The argument here is Democrats win through substance. Substance. Unions, jobs, climate. That's what
I
people
really
care
don't-
about.
On the
Nasser, go
core
ahead.
issue, I feel like Democrats would handle this issue just the same way Republicans would handle this issue. Generally, by letting the person that wants to take care of the child take care of the child. A lot of when
Legally,
we're
that's
doing
not
the
how it
single
works.
father, it depends on how the court works generally, right?
My dad and my mom
We
got
know how the
divorced
court
and my
works.
dad got
Yeah.
custody.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure.
it
I
depends
mean-
on how much that
Oh,
father
no.
wants to interact with that child and what
Oh,
the
you did the
stepfather
meme.
wants to do to interact with that child. I mean, sometimes it works out. Sometimes, I mean, the black community has a father problem. Like we're not gonna acknowledge that at all.
Well, actually, it
I
doesn't.
don't.
but
What are
I
we?
don't think
well,
it
I,
does.
that's
the way
beyond the
people
scope
think
of
it
does.
today's.
It's a
Maybe we should ask
stereotype.
why.
It used to be
Yeah.
there.
Maybe we can ask why.
Oh, the
though.
why is the men women are choosing. Is that what you want to hear? Is that the why?
No,
Are you ready for
that's
that
not why.
conversation? Then all
I
right.
don't
No,
think.
that's
I don't. What are? Let
You're
me
not ready for that
explain that.
conversation.
Explain it.
Explain
Please.
what? The
men-
caliber of
the-
individuals that young ladies
That-
are choosing to reproduce with.
that
Explain the issue that we're not
That's why-
focusing
that's
on,
why
on
there's
men
no
that are
dad.
rearing
Stop
children.
taking the Xerxes bait. I don't want to have the
Oh, are we taking? Are you incel pill? Or is
Okay,
that what you're
take
telling
it.
me?
Hold on,
Are you
stop.
secretly
Hold on,
incel
hold
Yes,
on.
pill?
yes.
Let me try to
Stop talking about it. It's so far out of the scope of what we're
retrack
talking
us. Let me try to re-rail us, right? Let me try to kind of direct the conversation just a smidge. Okay. Right. So Visora, you've made it clear that you think that by focusing on substance such as unions, such as the economy, such as jobs, this will naturally bring
Healthcare.
men healthcare. We can list.
I think all of it together will bring
men
over.
back. However, has that not been what the Democrats have been focusing on?
No.
Thank you.
Not at
No.
all.
How is
No.
it not?
No.
What
What
have
have they
they
been focusing on, then,
on?
team?
How have they done? Like, what were they
Yeah, in
focusing?
what way
What
have
were
they
they
been doing
focusing on?
populist like policies in the last election?
Bernie
Yeah.
Sanders, for example, he's
Bernie
not a
Sanders
Democrat,
is
but
not
he is on the
running.
Democrat
Bernie
Bernie
side.
Sanders is not a Democrat.
He's
Okay,
not
but
our
he
president.
caucuses
He's
with the
not-
Democrats.
He's bare.
Yeah, but
I mean, he's the
know,
only.
but-
You know what? AOC,
but the Democratic
and
Party, hold on,
Bernie
the
Sanders
Democratic-
are the only
AOC, yeah,
Democrats that
AOC is a
exist
Democrat.
right now to me. As
Yeah,
far as everyone
yeah,
else,
but
there
they-
is no
but they-
Democratic Party except those
unfortunately-
two people.
Yeah,
Can we take this
unfortunately,
back?
like
Wait,
AOC
let's
and,
take
and
this
Bernie
back.
Sanders don't actually represent the mainstream of the Democratic Party. I wish they
No.
did, and then we can make that argument.
There is
but
no
they don't.
Democratic Party. Those are the only
Yeah.
two Democrats that
Exactly.
exist right now because they're the only
Exactly.
ones that are doing anything actionable. Literally,
Look,
the
Chris
Democrats
Murphy's
have
all right.
moved to let them do it
Yeah.
policies.
The
There is no
it's
Democratic
uniparty
Party
shit.
to me.
It's uniparty
Yeah.
shit. It's just uniparty shit. There's the AOC.
But
there's
that's another
Bernie.
issue.
Yeah, that is a whole other issue.
Another issue.
But let's take this back to pre-election for a second, just so we can have like a clear basis of like people that we're talking about, right? Kamala Harris's campaign did not do any kind of populist rhetoric, did not do any kind of identity politics either, didn't mention
Well, it did. It only
anything like
talked
that.
about reinforcing the protection of abortion, which I don't see why males would
Okay,
be.
yes,
would be
that was
fond of
the only identity politics, which came from the immediate revocation of Roe v. Wade, which was very popular, by the way.
very-
But they
very
didn't do
popular.
anything else. They didn't do any other
But why
type
would
of
that
identity
appeal to
politics.
young men?
We weren't
though?
talking about.
Abortion is an identity.
Well, think
politics.
about
Can
it.
we, like, push
Well, wait,
back?
why
I think
wouldn't
that-
it
If
appeal
it
to
is-
Hold on.
Literally
Why,
healthcare.
why would a young
Why
man
wouldn't
that
it?
wants
Wait,
a family?
You're all
Yes,
trying to talk. at
let
the
me
same time.
answer
Okay.
your question. Why wouldn't they? If abortion rights also fall into miscarriages, why would you want, let's say,
Except it
your
wouldn't. A
wife
miscarriage isn't
who
an
is
abortion.
let's say your wife is pregnant and she has a life-threatening pregnancy, like they need to abort the baby or your wife's gonna die. That affects you, does it not?
Yeah, but I mean, I would have no say over
Oh, I
it
could just get
regardless,
another
remember?
wife?
Because I'm a male.
No, I feel like if it's your wife and they're dying, you do get to have a say in, hey, honey, I really
That's the
think you
first
should
I've
get this
ever heard
abortion
any
so you
person-
don't
Hold
die.
on.
That's the first time I've
Maybe
ever
you
heard
should
anyone
speak
say
to some
that.
women more often
Rewind,
than
because I
say
think we're
over
missing it. I think
abortion.
we're missing it.
I don't know,
We're
maybe you
talking
should speak to some women.
specifically. We're talking about.
I am. I'm talking to you right
Hold on.
now.
We're talking about
Yeah.
specifically
And you're
young
learning.
men. We're talking about specifically young men who are generally unmarried.
What has the what did the Democrats do for young men? As we said earlier, canceling student loan debt economic help
they didn't.
was good. They did. Biden did cancel student loan debt for
that thing
quite a lot
got
of
held
people.
up in the Supreme
But it
Court
literally
for
got
how
stuck in
long?
court.
Yeah.
Well, it got overturned by Donald Trump. The courts were
No, it
fine.
didn't.
It passed the courts.
He
No,
could
it
have.
did.
He could. Honestly, Biden
could
could
have
have did
kept
an
it, yeah.
executive order and generally
Yeah.
made it
Well,
more
okay.
forceful.
This is
But
another
he chose
thing.
not to because he would be stuck
Initially,
in like
the way
court litigation.
initially Biden tried to forgive
Yeah.
student loan debt was struck down by the Supreme
Yeah.
Court, but then he went back, he tailored it to a more narrow focus, it applied more narrowly, and he was able to get it through. That
that'll
is
work,
what
yes.
happened when it came
But
to
aside
the-
from that,
but this is- again,
there
it's
was the
another-
child tax credit as
And now it's gone, so it doesn't matter.
as this one. Well, I mean, we were talking about what Democrats did. Democrats they don't exist anymore. There's no Democrats like policy, so we have to
The
talk
housing
in
policy,
the past.
that was kind of populist. Of course,
The housing-
they talked about it, but
Yeah, like they didn't go anywhere near far enough on the substance because they're liberals and they don't believe in going that far on the substance. The Democratic
know-
Party that existed, the establishment, they didn't want power. They just want to critique power.
You know what's funny is that Trump wasn't the first influencer president. It was Obama that was the first influencer president. He greatly used Twitter to his advantage, and he greatly used social media. And somehow along the lines, the Democrats had never grew with that for some reason. They kind of sat on their laurels and kind of ignored things and thought the status quo would be enough. And unfortunately, that isn't the case. We are now in clout culture, which is generally hyper. I saw a video of Xerxes, the hyper agency one, and that's a big deal. I think a lot of a lot of the red pill speaks to men. Eventually, they will grow out of that because red pill is one step from being gay, in my opinion. And
How does that make sense?
Well, because
One step
literally,
from being a
men
homosexual?
this isn't a red pill debate. We're not
Men
doing the
being
red pill
around
shit
other
today.
men.
Well, wait, it's actually
boys will be
incredibly relevant, though.
boys.
I'm happy someone finally brought this back to the substance of the debate, which is why is red pill growing so much right now? And it's not because the right wing is so good, or this is like this hyper interesting
it speaks to
actual
the pain young
ideology.
men feel.
It's because the Democrats don't address these very niche things.
Yeah, but then they
about
get
men
fucked,
coming
and
of
then they
age.
realize that
It
they don't
doesn't
need
matter.
to be red pill
I
anymore.
think the red pill's dog shit. I think all of these right wing things are dog shit. But the point is, the choices between nothing and negative on the Democratic side, especially on the dismiss men's issues, all the way to, hey, I'm totally listening to you, and then here's this dipshit ideology. But unfortunately, that's the only route they can get. So that's why you have all these people following an Andrew Tate, a Sneeko, and all these things. And the problem is the Democrats currently do not have an answer to that because, like I said, they have the Visora message, which again is too smart. Unfortunately, it's, hey, these things are not nearly that important right now. We're talking about, the
Well, they are
dominance of
important.
men in the
See,
culture.
but this
They're
is
not
the
not
problem.
important. Let me
It
finish.
is
They're not
important
important
to
because
these men.
generally-
I'm
That's
not
why
saying
they
it's only the
follow
red
these
pill leaning
ideals.
towards
What are you
the
talking about?
politics, not the
Xerxes,
other way
okay.
around. The politics aren't leaning towards the red pill.
It unfortunately is,
Even-
if you look at
even
the
if
growing
it
movement. And if Donald Trump went up and said, hey, there's this man in Mississippi and he wants to turn into a walrus, and I think we should donate 10 trillion of the fucking
pill will
budget
eventually
to
die.
making this guy turn into a fucking walrus.
become something else.
Would you say, if I said, hey, that's not really important right now, would you, well, he's a man and he deserves empathy. What do you mean? It's his issue. He cares. It's about curtailing voters. And unfortunately,
a completely
men are a big
ridiculous
voting
example
bloc, and we do
is
need to
not
appeal
the
to them.
same thing
But
that talking about custody rights, which is a legitimate issue. We did
Custody
bring up
rights
and
is
we
a
did
legitimate
confirm
issue.
and say,
It is-
quote,
Here, I'll
unquote,
give you a
it's not
legitimate
important
issue.
right
Hold
now.
on, stop.
Most
I'll give you a
people want
legitimate
custody
issue
rights
that I think the
evenly.
right has been better on than the left when it comes to men. Title IX protections for men who are accused of sexual assault in college campuses, right? One of the things that Biden did that I was against was he lifted the requirement of the standard of proving your case, and he lowered that to make it so that men or anyone really accused of sexually assault on campus was giving less access to due process, right? Much less access.
Donald Trump did this for high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools. Like literally did this
Trump,
year. And
yeah, Trump reversed that for Title IX on college campuses, right? Where he reinstated the standards
How is that bad for
provided.
men?
Hold on. He reinstated the standards of proof, the burdens of proof that were put on the accusers in college campuses. One of the things that happened a lot during like the Me Too era and before even was that men would get accused on college and they would have no chance to defend themselves, and they would get kicked out, and it would later find out, right? What was that? I forget her name, but recently you remember the Duke case in colleges, like the Duke.
Yeah.
The lady came out and says, I just made that up. Like 20 years later, not 20 years later, but she recently came out. I just made it up. But those people, those men got shafted, right? They got kicked out of their college. It was terrible. It was terrible.
But this is a perfect example, Wick, right? Like, first, I'm going to start off, and this is my trigger, so please don't interrupt me. I promise I'm going to elaborate on this. This is a very small issue of men being accused of rape. However, a very important one, right? You don't want to be falsely accused of rape and get punished for that. And so, if you message, hey guys, we're caring about this, we don't want you to go to jail for something that is unjust, suddenly you've now just won over the entire swath of men, whereas the Democrats say, rightly, but in a bad way, what is this, like, 10 people per college or less every 4 years?
Hold on.
It doesn't matter.
Wait. No, stop. Soy Pill. Everyone shut up right now. Soy Pill. You're making the same argument that the people who are complaining, like I've complained, like, hey, they're deporting immigrants right now with no due process. And it's just a few of them. It doesn't matter. That's the argument you're making right now.
There's a very
you're right. No, Wick,
I have to counter Wick. No, I want to yell at Wick right now.
The same argument on top of that of like trans people in sports. And everyone's like, well, there's like 4 trans people in the country that play sports. True. Okay, that's not in and of itself huge. But the issue isn't them actually playing sports. It's capitulating to the right-wing narrative even a little bit. Don't capitulate even a tiny bit because they're wrong and they're stupid. Yes, I'm too smart. They're too dumb to understand it. You have to up their level of intelligence.
Wait,
sorry,
no,
but that's the only way.
That was not my counter to Wick. It's understandable that it's like, hey, there's a big difference between violating someone's rights and getting rid of a due process and getting someone kicked out. This is not good. I'm not saying we shouldn't address this. I'm saying that the framing of this right now is immediately what I said, and you got mad. This is just proving my point in real time, because I would not be saying this on a much larger public platform if I was a politician. I wouldn't say, hey, but it's only 10. Who gives a shit? This is a very important thing. But when Democrats do that, what happens is what you did. Is you say, what the fuck? This is a big deal. What do you mean? And it's a big deal to the people it affects. And morally, it doesn't matter how many people it affects. It matters morally how am I addressing this injustice.
It has affected more people
so you have
than
to
you
talk
understand.
about it, and you have.
I think this has affected more people than you understand, right? Because it's
I
not only.
Agreeing with you. The reason I started off this sentence with "this is going to make some people mad" is because I said the truth, which is this doesn't affect a lot of people. And the reason I said that was to illustrate that in saying something that is true, you're going to piss a lot of people off and alienate them away from your party and your messaging. And that's why you can't just say things that are true. You have to have better messaging on it.
It's not true. The fact that this doesn't affect a lot of people is simply not true.
Do you think it affects more than 0.5% of the population?
It affects every single man who goes to college.
Do you think it affects more than 0.5%?
Whether or not they are accused or not, knowing the pieces of standards.
I think Wick is getting at like the media presence of it.
No,
my point.
Oh my God, you guys aren't listening.
Any male, and that's why males care about this. They see an injustice, they don't like it, and you need to talk about this and address it. The reason I said it's not a big deal is to illustrate that in saying something that is technically true, it is not a big deal in terms of quantity. People will get mad at that, and you can't use that as your messaging. That was my point. That's why you're crashing out on me for saying it. You just keep proving my point in real time. Every time we say something true that's bad messaging,
but it's not true.
How many
it's not true. It's not true because what you're saying, and if you allow me to finish uninterrupted, I can explain to you why you're wrong. Okay, so what you are saying, or what you're trying to put forth, is that because only a few people actually have to go through the processes that are laid out in Title IX, that it doesn't actually affect the other people. And I reject that premise. I think that the premise is that every man who is in this culture, in this society that is going through these rules, it absolutely weighs on their mind. It worries them, it affects them, it changes their behavior, and it changes how they view not only the system, right, that they're in, but the people who are advocating for the different points of the system, and each other, and women as well. It becomes an adversarial thing.
Further?
Okay, yeah.
Take it a step further. Go ahead, please.
No, because you're right, exactly right about this, but this affects not only not just men, not just women, but everybody. But take this and grow the problem now with how many people in America are afraid of just police action for speaking out for not liking something, because now you go to a protest at a Republican town hall. Yeah, and you get kicked out. They'll drag the woman out of her chair and they'll take her outside, but they'll do it to the men too. It doesn't matter. Right now, the bigger issue isn't who is more oppressed? We are all oppressed now, guys. We live
Yeah,
under
it shouldn't
fascism.
be a versus issue. It should never be a versus
now
issue.
we're talking about who's first in line for the camps right now, and I would rather talk about, I don't know, how to get out of this issue, how to talk about like real issues that affect everybody and also men. For example, if you're talking about masculinity, right? How masculine of a man are you going to feel like if your 14-year-old kid in Florida has to work the night shift because you can't afford food, and they lowered the working age so that 14-year-olds can work overnight now because all the illegal immigrants got deported, and now we need to fill those jobs. Do you feel like a manly father for your 14-year-old having to work overnight and not go to school the next day? Because if I was a father. Yeah, well, those are shitty fathers.
Some rural.
I shitty mothers. No.
Yeah.
I know working when you're 14 is not the issue. That's fine. I worked when I was 14. I'm saying when your kid is forced to, like, you can't afford food for your family because otherwise, unless your kid works the overnight shift and doesn't go to school, like that was the situation I laid out, which is not unreasonable for Florida. For many Floridians, millions.
Let's give it to Xerxes for a minute, and then I want to give it to Prime, and we'll go on for there. I have a couple more super chats I want to get to too, but Xerxes first.
All I was saying was that, like, if we're talking about the perception of like masculinity, and to Prime's extremely earlier point, we still haven't really truly defined it. Some people might honestly be like, this is just what men do. We work hard, we make sacrifices, we do what we got to do to make sure our family gets taken care of. That 14-year-old is just learning that lesson a lot younger. I mean, if we're talking about perception, some people they will just accept that's just how
I would call that toxic masculinity. That's what I would call toxic masculinity.
Yeah, I understand it. I think I understand what is trying to be articulated with toxic masculinity, but I think that the fact that we regard it as if it is a code of conduct in and of itself is kind of a misunderstanding of like what we should even refer to masculine traits. Like the word itself really means things that are primarily found in males, right? Masculinity is more reflection of what is, not what ought. But we use these terms and these concepts as a sort of moral code, or like some sort of like badge of honor we put on to bequeath the title of man to someone. I think that there's a lot of things wrong with that. The fact remains we do it. And so, we operate in that framework. Right. But in that way, I think when it comes to, again, toxic masculinity, there is a lot more nuance to the concept that's not given to, or a lot more nuance given to the idea of, like, just for example, working hard as a man. Like you say that's toxic masculinity, but another person is going to view that as a positivity. Like, I love my family, so I'm willing to work hard for them. Right?
You're actually right.
There is that nuance in that concept, and I think that a lot of people, they don't hear that nuance when they hear toxic masculinity.
You're right. I've had this discussion with one of my chatters on stream, in that I said that the idea of you have to work for your family, like you are the one that has to provide, your wife stays at home, takes care of the kids. This is as much of an oppressive state on you as it would be on your wife, not even accounting for like whether the hypothetical wife wanted to be a stay-at-home mom or not. It is oppressive to you as the man of the house in this nuclear family setting.
But you see how there's a lack of nuance there, though. You say it's oppressive.
Well, I am getting to the nuance, like why it's oppressive is the nuance.
Yeah.
It is oppressive because you are now expected as the sole bread earner of the house to provide, and if you fail, not whether you do or not, that pressure, that guillotine is hanging over your head. If I fail at providing for my family, then I'm a failure of a man. It is like, because that's the words that were used by the chatter, was if I failed to do this, I'd be a failure of a man. And I think that is you socially constructing a box for yourself that you have to fit into, and that's oppressive to you. All of this is made up. Because it's all made up.
It might be made up, but it doesn't exist in isolation to relationships between men and women, right? Because for as much as there might be other men who might say you're less of a man, there are women who say, I don't want to engage with you sexually,
but we're not
because
talking
you're
about
not that category.
But we are talking about how other people
get
them
out of there. You have to, because it doesn't exist.
Okay. Hold on. Just hold on. Okay, enough.
You're missing a bit.
Enough. You're all
Well,
missing
like-
of it. Okay?
Okay.
You're all missing of it. We do have to get more people in on this discussion. It's gonna go. It's gonna be Xerxes, and I love you, Xerxes. I do. I really do.
I do
Well,
have to
I
go.
was quiet.
Out if you
I have to
keep
go
letting
pee for a
deviate.
second, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
Gosh.
I'll be
Then I'll
gone
say
for a
bye.
second.
We'll give it to Prime for a moment.
Mhm.
I hadn't actually raised my hand, but
Oh,
I will.
sorry, I thought
I'll put no worries, Finn. I should be the star any which way, so it makes sense. Oh, I guess what I want to put forth is that, like, I think the formulation of the question, the topic itself, is a bit off, and that, like, I don't think that Republicans like do much to necessarily like the Republican Party, right? The party apparatus actually does much to deal with this topic of masculinity, like at all, really. I don't think that's like a big thing within like their platform or what they push. And at the same time, to reflect that, I don't think the Democratic Party should be doing that as well. That's not where we look for politicians, right? We all had like trouble like talking about policies on both sides that actually address these things. But where this conversation is happening is on like conservative, like leaning influencers, right? It's an influencer space. So like on the right, they're having a lot more conversations about masculinity, manhood than we see on the liberal leaning side, right? The leftist side. And that's where it should go. And I think the distinction here is important, right? Because like it's different when you're asking a party apparatus to necessarily fund these things, to build these things out, rather than looking for like to support like grassroots influencers who are like coming up and like actually can genuinely speak to the audiences that we need to be spoken to.
But Prime, that's what the Democrats are doing, right? Like they fund, like I said, these Harry Sis and Dean Withers. Those are Democrat. I don't want to say Democrat
the
operatives.
DNC is not funding them.
or-
So what they could do,
but they're promoting them, right? Like these are the people that are getting the most attention.
Okay, right, but that's a difference. That's also a difference too, right? So I think the best the party can do, and I think this is what happens on the Republican side, is that for these influencers, they can appear on their platforms and then like raise their platforms or something, right? You know, in that way. But it's different than asking a party apparatus to do these things, because I don't think either one is set up to actually have these conversations. Instead, we actually want to be finding influencers on the left who have these answers, who can fit the role. Like what you were saying, or someone was saying about like fitting the stereotypical even look, right? Having the muscles, like, you know, like doing the fitness thing, but still having a steady hand and be able to push these values and responsibilities. That's what we want. But I don't think we will get like the DNC is set up to do that.
Okay,
I agree. The Democrats should give me money.
If I may,
Indeed.
and I wish Visora is here for this. I don't know what she's doing, but she'll be back soon, I hope.
She
Um,
said she went to the bathroom.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. But I do want to get this out because it's important, and I think this will drive the remaining 20 minutes we have. I
Subscribe to
think,
Wick.
in a more okay. We'll get to that, right? But in a semi-productive fashion. One of the things that men want, especially young men, is purpose. Okay, they want purpose. They want something, right? The traditional role of being a provider, of being a supporter, of having that responsibility to care for a family. What a lot of young men see that as not as a burden, not as a box, but as they matter. They're important. They actually serve a function that if they don't serve this function, things will go wrong. And they want that space. They want to be the provider. They do. They want to matter in a very real way. And again, you may argue that this is a bad way to matter or a toxic way to matter or what have you, but Republicans are providing this way to matter for men. And I don't see that same thing from the Democrat or the left side. I don't see that.
So
I think it's perfectly fine.
Hold on 1 second.
Go ahead.
The Republicans, I don't think the Republicans are providing this. I think the conservatives
Neither
are
do I.
speaking to it, though. But like,
Okay, by providing
what
they're
do you-
speaking to it.
Sure,
Go ahead.
sure. Yeah, no problem. But so, but what do we actually want here, right? Like, I think I agree with your point overall, Wick. But I think that's been undermined, right? By like women, their wages increasing, their role in society increasing, where women
That is part of the crisis, yes.
Yeah, right. So like, is that what we want? Do we want it simply to be a case that men are like paid more, and so they're in a monetarily advantageous position, and then they can be the leader, or
No,
like,
he's
like
asking
what's-
for validation.
or we can
Wait.
sure.
Let Prime finish. Let Prime finish. Yeah.
Yeah, almost done. So yeah, like, can we define what it means to be a provider in this day and age? Because before it was like just having a financially advantageous position. But you're saying, is it validation? Is it I don't know, to feel that their role is I get within the family is better defined in some way? Like I don't know what that means.
Okay, let me try to answer that.
Hold on.
Oh, let me
Well,
try
I
to
was
answer
just
that
telling
just
you,
real quick,
it
and then
is-
hold on. Let me try to answer that because you did ask a question. I think it's important to answer that. I think that what men want is to feel that they matter, right? And how do we provide that? I wouldn't say by going back to where women can't have like fucking jobs or can't have fucking a bank account on their own. I don't
We're
think
not going
that's
back to
the.
that,
I don't
though.
think that's the proper
Government
path.
mandated girlfriends.
Yeah,
We're not
no,
going
not
back.
that
Hey,
either.
I've
But-
spoken to that topic before.
Oh,
Women could just be nicer.
Let
to
me
men
let
and
me
just-
finish.
Wait,
Let me
wait,
finish
wait,
answering.
wait,
Oh my
wait,
god, I
Wick,
haven't really got
I
to
could.
Wick,
Don't take the
Let me
bait.
talk.
They're
can
not
I
gonna
ask
let
you a
me answer.
question?
are you?
Because I'm gonna forget.
My answer doesn't
because-
matter, okay? Because your question is more important than my answer here. But go ahead.
No, I'm gonna forget.
Please, lady, go ahead.
Otherwise,
Yeah, go ahead.
Write
because
it
in your setup for this, you said that Republicans are speaking to this, and Democrats aren't. And I would disagree. In fact, I think the Democrats spoke to it more, especially during the election, because there was a lot more talk of let's give you increases in your access to money. Let's decrease your taxes by $6,000. Let's give you the permanent child tax credit.
Sorry, you're
all
doing
of
it
this
again.
again.
You're being too
No, but
smart.
it's
They didn't,
it's
but they
all of
didn't
it is
focus
money.
it on men.
If
And that's all
men
that
want a
matters.
purpose, men want a purpose, do they not? Well,
Yeah,
the
but men
purpose
wanna
that they
be,
want
men want
is
to be
to.
pandered to, and we're not pandering
Okay.
to the men.
No, they don't
Yeah,
want to be
well,
pandered to. They
yes, they
want
do.
they
They
want
wanna be treated
value
like
to
men.
be
They
Yeah.
are valid. They're
But this right
valid.
here, then
Wanting
why
to be the provider
don't the
is valid.
Democrats confirm that worth and value?
Men
to
just
males
want to
then?
be able
Why
to
don't
answer a
males see
question
it?
without getting interrupted. That's what a man
Why
wants.
Men just
can't
want to have
men?
fun.
Too. But my
Why-
question
why-
is to Visora, why don't the males see that coming from the Democrats then? If that's what they believe,
Because of the
why is this
media
not
environment.
communicated to them?
Because of the
The
media
media-
environment.
The
Which
The
men.
does
media
what?
environment
Panders
is
to
entirely
women.
right wing.
Who
that
does Harry
panders-
Sesson? Who does Harry Sesson?
Who the fuck? What are you
pander
talking
to?
about? The
does
media
Harry
environment is
Sesson-
all right wing. Harry
Okay, so
Sesson
on,
makes
on
like a
TikTok,
drop in the
on-
bucket.
Okay, so
Yes,
on
on
TikTok, who
TikTok.
gets
Yeah.
pandered to?
I don't know. I don't call it
Women.
TikTok.
It's not
No.
young men. The Democrats
No.
do
Of
not
course they
pander
do
to
not.
young
No, you
men.
can't say
They
that,
don't
because
get
generally
permission.
men and
They don't
women
get
are
TikTok,
absolute
absolution.
wait, hold on. That's a
any
lie.
ideal
TikTok
that
panders to
males
you
like or
based
care
on
about,
your
so.
algorithm.
They have a
TikTok
little
panders
algorithm,
to-
yeah, like
yeah,
that. Like,
it's based on
panders to
whoever the fuck
everybody.
is
What are you
using it,
talking about?
my guy. If
Yeah.
you love Andrew Tate and you go on TikTok, you get pandered
You'll
to
find a lot
like
of
banned.
Andrew
Andrew
Tate,
Tate
yeah.
manosphere
He's been
shit.
banned. No,
No,
wrong.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
been
but
banned
like,
on
take
but
this
TikTok.
you
a step
understand,
You literally
like,
can't
little
even mention
algorithm
Andrew
don't
Tate
matter to
ever.
anyone.
Phineas has a
The
good answer for
reason-
this.
Gone.
Hold
The
on,
reason
stop.
that we
All
all
of you,
think
all of
this
you,
is an
please.
issue.
Phineas
I'm
has a good
honestly
answer to
done.
this. I'm going to read it, even though he didn't pay me any money, but it's perfect. We helped men by helping everyone is a democratic version of responding to Black Lives Matter with All Lives Matter.
How
I agree.
about-
I agree that like
I agree.
I don't like I don't like this policy or saying that the policy of like child tax credit equal helping men, right? Again, I think it's a good policy, like in it, but like when people are talking about, hey, we have these maybe systemic issues that are holding a group back, right? And then we say, okay, well, here is a policy that raises all boats. It's not necessarily bad, right? We don't have to put these things in opposition, but that still doesn't necessarily address the thrust of it. And I think it's valid for people within a group, right, who's feeling themselves being held back by the systemic issues to want, right, their politicians to quote unquote pander to them, or to actually, what that actually means, address the issue.
Yeah, like,
Absolutely.
this whole thing is so
And-
silly. Like this, I don't know why this
I
is an
won't get
arguable
into it,
point.
but-
The right, I agree, obviously is not providing material things to men. They're obviously, making all these wealth disparities. They're making people's lives work. But all they have to do is, again, this is a neutral to negative on the Democrat side versus a positive, right? They are not appealing to men on the Democratic side, and on the right wing, all they're doing is, hey, look, I like guns and trucks and cool stuff and sports and shit. Don't you want to vote for me? And it's working. That's the problem. The whole debate is the problem that they just have to have brain dead fucking
right's
traditionally
relatable.
masculine pandering, and it works. And we need to do
But
some
they
sort
they
of
don't do
thing
just that. They don't do just
They
that.
don't
One
need
of
to just do that.
one of
That's
the
the
most
thing that's winning
effective
people over.
attacks. One of the most effective attacks that Trump had during the campaign was Trump's for you and she's for they them, right? They're for the other.
Which was a
right?
lie.
This is
I understand
exactly
it
what
was
I
a
am saying,
lie.
Rick.
I'm saying
This
it's
is
an
exactly what I'm
effective
saying.
attack.
The messaging
We don't have to
is
throat
something
clear
that's
every single
completely
time that it was a
irrelevant,
lie.
talking about
We've
trans
said that
issues,
enough.
and it works.
I think people have gotten it. Okay, that we don't
It's the
believe it. We
media
can
environment.
genuflect later. But here's the crux and the core of it. As I've been trying to get out, and my brevity does. Oh, that pizza looks delicious. The brevity is not one of my strong suits, and I apologize for that. Okay. But what I've been trying to get out is one of the ways that Democrats need to come forward and to win and start the process of winning men back is to recognize that they fucked up, that they have been dismissive of men's problems, that they have been telling men to kind of shut up and sit down, and we're going to stop doing that. I think that's the first step, to say we aren't going to allow our politicians
I have an
to
example.
dismiss you anymore.
Yeah,
That's
I agree.
it's
I have an
a
example of
simple
this.
We
thing.
will sit down and shut up.
No, hold
alright?
on. I have a really simple explanation
Well,
that
I'll
you're
sit
right
down
with,
and shut up,
that
and you
could
can
just
say, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you should, as you should. Get me a beer too while you're at it. Look, a really easy way that we can do that, by the way, is just change some of the wording that we use. Like, for example, we talk about deaths in war and we talk about women and children all the time, but we don't ever mention men because apparently, like, men are all counted as combatants in that issue, for example. That's one thing you could do. Just a small little increase in how you word something, instead of saying, look at all these women and children dying, into look at all these people dying. And yes, it's more women and children, but it's not discounting the fact that men are also being killed and also counted less. Let's say if we're talking about Gaza, for example, the count of how many civilian men died, I'm gonna go ahead and assume is just a couple hundred, maybe thousand short of how many were actually civilians versus how many were combatants. And we always talk about the women and the children, which is important as well, but it's the phrasing. So I can see that there could be some phrasing distinction to add a bit more pandering to men on the Democrat end. But at the same time, like, can we drop the idea that the Democrats actually work for you in any way? Like, there's like three Democrats that give a shit about you.
Look, we're gonna have to have a debate, me and you, Visora, maybe
That's
Prime
different-
too. I think that the Democrats are working for people, and their messaging sucks.
Yeah,
Right?
Some of them
Hold on,
are.
I will
I
fight
think
all of
most
you
of
on
them
this.
are controlled
But
opposition.
Biden, for example, did a lot for this country, right?
I
Especially
agree.
for
Biden
unions.
domestically.
Yeah,
And
but
all
Biden's
these
gone
things,
now,
right?
so that's not.
And
That's not even relevant.
Obama did
Yeah.
a lot for people, right? He was very
Right.
strong. on
Obama's
things like
gone
the
now, so
border.
that's not relevant.
But
the
here's the
DNC is pretty
thing.
much
Here's
dead
the-
right
here's the
now.
We're
thing. If I
talking
may.
about Democrats today, Wick. Democrats
Now.
today. Democrats today.
Well, Democrats today don't know what they are yet. They're fighting. They're in a civil war. But
It would
That
appear
turn-
so.
no,
but,
they're
I mean,
controlled
They are in
opposition.
a
They
civil
bent
war
the
right
knee.
now. You were on one side
Yeah,
of the
like,
line.
that's-
I'm on the other in the control. But
We need to
but-
acknowledge
but-
that
at all.
Oh my god!
Please,
oh
do not
my
call me a
God!
Democrat.
Okay.
Go Wick, go!
This idea that we can appeal to men by changing how we refer to things sometimes is not going to work. We need to be stronger. We need to come out
Well, yeah.
forcefully, and we need to say, we fucked up. We are going to do better. Right?
Fuck that.
That's
No,
what
never
we
admit
need to
wrongdoing.
do.
That's emasculating, Wick.
I
We need to
disagree.
come out and say, actually, we've done everything right, because that's all that Trump ever fucking does. When's the last time
That's
he
true.
ever said he did anything wrong? Fuck
Yes,
that.
never-
I'm not going to come up
never
and be like,
play defense.
oopsie doopsie, I'm so sorry, man. I'm going to come out, hey, you're a fucking pussy-ass bitch if you don't vote for a Democrat. You want me to fucking
Yes.
slap you across the face? That's what we're going to be doing.
The soy pill, based
not
as
gonna
fuck.
work
What
for
you
us.
come out and say is the Republicans have been lying to you. They
I'm gonna
pretend
bully
like
you
they
to
give
the
a
dump.
shit about men, but all they've done is destroy your lives, take your rights away, make it harder for you to get near any woman because now every woman in America is terrified of Republican voting men. That's what they did for you. How about you join the side that actually gives a shit about improving your life? Whether you're a man, a woman, child, I don't give a shit. We just want to improve your life if
That
you're
is
an
a-
American.
We need to stop-
We work for
Democrat just have to
Americans.
do
be
better
wider and
narrative,
larger
though.
than every Republican
Yeah.
and mog them in every debate. That's how we win. I'm sorry. It's actually
Yes.
going to be how it works.
You're exactly. Stop being nice. Stop playing defense. Control the conversation. It's their own. They should be defending everything themselves.
Let me,
every single point.
Let me read these super
TLDR,
chats, and we're
Wick's a
going to
bitch.
closing. right?
Sorry.
We're gonna get we're gonna read these super chats and we're gonna do closing statements because I know
I got
people
to
have
head
go.
out.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
do mine.
Yeah,
and
do
just
yours
head out.
real quick if you have to go. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks all for thanks Wix for inviting me. Thank you all for having a great conversation. I think it was a lot of fun. Shout out to everyone. Nice to see you again, Bass. And Nasser, has been on a very, very long time. I hope you're doing well. Visora, fiery as always. And like awesome. I think
Good
you're
to
great.
see ya.
Just letting you know that. And then of course, Soy Pill. I haven't met you before, but this was a lot of fun. I'll send
Nice to meet you,
you.
man.
Yeah, I'll send you a friend request. Hopefully we can work together in the future. But again, Wick is fantastic. I really appreciate him having me on, inviting me. A really amazing individual here. Subscribe to him. Support my friend Wick. Yeah, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
See
And
ya.
we'll see you soon. We'll write out
Good to
into
see
him
ya.
in a second. But I do want to read these super chats and then I want to get this to the closing statements and we can wrap this up. But $5 from Joe the Mig to say delusional. Clinton era Dems rolled over. Republicans with a unified liberal message. $5 from Miles Kinslow to say the Trump administration first term helped protect due process for men during the rape on campus hysteria. Thank you for $5. $5 more from Joe the Mick. She's genuinely wrong. Domestic violence rates between men and women are near parity in the US and UK. You need to get the Tin Men on these discussions, Wick. Hey, you have them DM me and I'll see if what we can do. $5 from TL1524. It's funny to watch the toxic feminist not realize she is one. The point is demonize half the populace. They won't vote for you. It's that simple.
Thank you.
$2 from Joe the
One-third,
Mick.
but
$2 from Joe the Mick. Wick, don't allow this whataboutism. £5 from Jacob Buckingham. How much for the bike with the cap to never be on a panel again? You're the only one with a cap on, so there you go.
It's a bike.
I don't know. He's British. It might be slang. I don't. $10 from Joe the Mig. It's not a social construct that men want to care for their family. Our hormone profiles literally change to increase our care aspect when we get married and have children. Blank slateism must end. Thank you for the $10. $5 from Testicle Johnson. We need to normalize men windmilling their peens in front of their partners.
Hell yeah.
$5 from Chernog Rebellion. For people so smart, the left wing sure does suck at explaining their points. Maybe instead of glazing yourself about how smart you are, self-reflect. $5 from Lisa. The Republicans appeals to feelings, and Dems are trying to appeal with facts and data despite your feelings. Facts don't matter if people don't feel good. Thank you for the $5. And finally, $5 from Joe the Mick. Republicans pursue policies to help the nuclear family. Quote, Republicans are lying to you, end quote. Thank you for the $5. Okay, with that, thank you, all of you, for being here for this. I don't know if it was productive, but it sure was interesting debate. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks to all the people who showed up. I do have links in my comments below to all their stuff, including Primes, who had to leave a little early. We got some great content coming up. Tomorrow, I'll be debating Counter Connor, or counterpoints, if you will, on the deportation issue and the immigration issue. He says Khalid Mahmoud Khalid, Khalil, I'm butchering the name.
Khalil Mahmoud.
Thank you. Should be deported. I strenuously disagree. So we'll have a little one-on-one
Due
debate.
process for everyone.
I'll be entering the ring and defending due process and freedom of speech. Yes, even for non-citizens. That should be fun. On Thursday, we're going to have a show on Trump saying that he isn't joking about wanting to run a third term. So that is going to be a fun discussion as well. So tune in for that. And with that, let's give it to Bass to start us off, or let Visora have the last word. Bass, tell people who you are, where they can find you, what your closing thoughts are. Go ahead.
All right, well, I'm BassFz on YouTube. Like I said earlier, I'm a social commentator, I like to say, talking about society and all that good stuff. To close, I think that without much of trying very hard, I've kind of shown exactly what the issue with the Democrats or the more left-leaning side of these discussions are. And that is, for as much as they themselves might, if I give them the grace, understand that there's nuance and complexities to these issues that young men are dealing with, oftentimes they are very quick to dismiss them, at least on the front end, and they don't give much space to the emotional issues and weight that young men are going through and what they're feeling. The reason why the manosphere, the red pill, right wing, all that good stuff is growing so much in male favor is because there is a space of at least, even if you don't agree with it, at least some type of standard or concept of being a man. Whereas on the left-leaning side, they either have deconstruction or just they're told or they only hear of their toxic aspects. And as such, just from that psychological point of view of like, well, this side doesn't like me, but this side gives me something to go for. Whether the Republicans, conservatives, or whatever even adhere to any promise is irrelevant. They're not outwardly hating them and telling them they're terrible people. And so I think that's our masculinity problem right there.
Thank you
I'll
for
end it with that.
thank you for being here, Xerxes. I always appreciate you on the panel. I appreciate your perspective. You can find his channel. It's linked in below in my YouTube comments. So
That was
go
good.
check
This was good.
him out. Nasser, go ahead.
Well, I think when it comes to masculinity, it changes through the ages. Generally, it also some people have to. It's kind of really subjective. You know, there are one-parent households where the boy in the family will have to grow up a little bit sooner than in certain cases, or there'll be parents on both sides. Or so I guess when we're talking about the single-parent household, they're going to be in search for like a masculine figure, and the red pill may end up filling that gap. Unfortunately, we need better role models, probably on both ends. It's not necessarily just one, and it doesn't really even have to be on the political lines. It shouldn't necessarily be. It's like we need parental guidance outside of politics, at the local level, among your community, that doesn't have anything. It doesn't have to do with politics. We just need good role models that are not like hyper clout, the hyper clout generation. We'll call it. But it's just interesting. And I liked Viz, but Viz also needs to like olive branch a little bit more. We gotta stop harping on negative traits and kind of olive branch and kind of understand that males make mistakes and males need to learn to grow and be held accountable. And then same thing with Xerxes. Men should probably be held accountable at times, and they need to be held accountable at times when their mistakes are made. So it's we need to olive branch both ways, you know. All
Both
right, I'm done.
ways. Bye, olive branching. No, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. And gang, just to be clear, I'm not ending the
We get a
stream after
flex.
this. I do have some things I want to talk about, but I am ending the panel. We're going to send these lovely individuals out. I just want to let you know. So don't leave. Stay. Okay, Soy Pill, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like I said at the beginning. I don't know why we kept deviating off this. The messaging and the pandering is not there for the Democrats. The Democrats, like Xerxes said, unfortunately, I have to agree with them a lot in this debate. And I say that, Xerxes, because you and I ideology, we just don't align. But when you say something that's right, I gotta acknowledge, yeah, Democrats are doing neutral to negative pandering to a very large swath of the population, which is men, specifically white men. And I'm not saying we need to identity politic and embody that. I'm just saying that you need to acknowledge their grievances in ways that aren't alienating to them, and that's what we're doing. My point was proven like 2 or 3 times in this specific panel. Visora was saying something based and objectively correct, but it didn't matter because people didn't understand it, whether that was Wick or Xerxes, whoever. And that's just proves my point. It's not about the point that being true. It's about how you present it. And right now, the way we're presenting it is bad. We need more people on the left to embody masculine traits, to be, bodybuilders, fitness influencers. We need people to be, like I'm the gun guy, I'm the truck guy. That doesn't mean we all have to do it, and I don't think we all need to do it. I think there's plenty of room for all sorts of men all over the spectrum. I just think we sorely need the traditionally masculine ones so we can win those people that are on the right back. Happy Trans Day of Visibility. Trans Day of Visibility. More trans men need to be testosteroning up the place with woke masculinity. That's what I think. And all I can say is, yeah, if we need, there we go. There's the flex. Yeah, all I can say is, yeah, let's be more masculine. Let's really do it, left. Dang, I'm pretty.
Good job. Soy Pill, always a pleasure. Thank you for being here, and I do really appreciate your perspective. You can find a link to his channel in my description. Last, but certainly not least, always fiery, one of my favorites, Visora, go ahead.
Well, first off, I didn't know it was Trans Day of Visibility, so thank you. And happy Trans Day of Visibility to anyone who might be watching and is trans, or not, really. But no, I agree. And realistically, I think that like the gender role stuff, I don't tend to give a shit about because I don't believe in gender. I'm a gender abolitionist, but I can engage with people who do. But I think all of this goes beyond all of that to just the point of empathy. It's just empathy. Like, we don't have engagement in local communities. We don't have in-person social interaction the way that we used to do. And because of that, and because of the online engagement communities that we built in the last 20 years, where you have a mask, where you are anonymous, where you can say more, where there's less consequences, we have lost our ability to empathize with other people to the same extent, even if it's only conditional. Maybe you do have empathy in some cases, but online generally, especially when it comes to politics, we don't apply empathy to anybody, let alone the opposition, just kind of in general, anyone who disagrees with us, as a society. Not all of us. And this is a larger issue on the right, but it does exist on the left as well, and not just the Democrat left, further to that as well. So really, I think empathy is my key here. If you want to win as a Democrat,
Hearts and minds.
empathy, substance. You got to improve people's standard of living, improve the material conditions, and you also have to, we would have done better in this last election if we did push DEI and identity politics. If we did, Kamala Harris never said the word. Yeah, Kamala Harris never said the word transgender this entire election. Maybe she should have. Maybe we should have pushed harder for protecting DEI initiatives. Maybe we should have had Kamala Harris talking about how this is mostly white women who are getting benefits from it. I think it's a matter of messaging, as you have said, the Soy Pill. Secondly, it's the empathy. And thirdly, it's the material conditions. Everything else is a distraction that is manufactured by the right. The masculinity issue exists, but it is also a manufactured issue. It's not to the extent. It's not to the extent that, it would exist without the media environment around it.
Okay.
But that's my take.
Okay, gang, you can find her. I linked to her YouTube channel. You can click on that link in my YouTube description and give her a follow. Thank you all for being here. We're not leaving. I'm just letting them go away. So I'm going to leave you guys to go away. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, Wick. And nice to meet you all. See ya.
Okay, kings, queens. I got a lot of thoughts, and I wanted to share some of them with you before we exit today, because I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed with their answers, for most of them. We need better ones. I think what I heard, and maybe I was too close to it, right? Maybe I was distracted a little bit, so maybe I missed something, right? But what I heard was a lot of, well, the other side is just manufacturing this issue. It's not a real issue, or it's not that important of an issue. Yeah, it matters, but really it only matters in the sense that the Republicans are just lying about it, right? And that's just not true. Look, Republicans are lying about a lot of things, okay? But this isn't one of the things. This isn't one of the issues that I think they're wrong on. I think that, there's just this demonstrable lack of caring about what happens to young men on the left. That's not to say all the left and all Democrats don't care about young men. I think a lot of us do. But the leadership, the messaging, the people in charge, we don't put forth policies that specifically solve the issues that young men care about. And my God, the child tax credit as an issue that's going to win the young men's hearts over is just wrong. It's just incorrect. It's not going to work. It's going to be very, very bad. We need a message, right? And combined, what Visora was right about, we need substance. It can't just be saying shit, okay? We need to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. And we have to open up initiatives to draw young men back into higher education, right? And that means specifically tailored scholarships for young men, right? Not just women only, not just minority only, but specifically young men from impoverished neighborhoods need to have specific, right, incentives drawn up to win them over and win them back and to help them out. What else could we put forward to acknowledge the issues that young men are going through? One of those is the loneliness epidemic, right? So we need at least some sort of policy stance that shows we recognize the inherent predatory nature of of a lot of these dating apps. I don't know what that looks like. I can't solve the problem right here, right now. I unfortunately can't. But we need to be thinking about it. We need to be solving it, right? There are so many issues that young men face today. They need purpose. They need a reason. They need meaning in their lives. And I think we should provide it for them. Or at the very least, we shouldn't denigrate those who are trying to provide it. I think that there's a lot we can do. One of the things that the right does well is that they will adopt things that the left does well and just say it's their own. And they'll kind of steal it in a way. Clinton did this to a lot of the issues from the Republicans back in the day. One of the things that made Clinton so effective, Bill Clinton, to be clear, in the 90s, is he would take a popular issue that the Republicans had ownership of, and he would simply steal it. He would say, no, it's our issue now. It's the Democrats. And Republicans reflexively opposed him on it, and it got them in trouble politically, okay? Right? Democrats need to do that today, right? They need to take an issue. They need to take a couple issues, and they just need to steal them, right? They just need to take them. That said, there are hills to die on. One of the things that I'm going to be talking about tomorrow, and you guys who are cheering me on talking about men's issues are not going to like this, but it's true. Okay. The assault by Trump on due process it's alarming. Okay? It's alarming. The way he is simply... There is a man, Andrew, I believe is his name. It's a gay barber, okay? He had two tattoos. He had a crown on his wrist that said mom, okay, and it looks like a queen's crown. And then on the other wrist, he had a king's crown that said dad. ICE agents took him, processed him, and deported him to El Salvador prison, which is known for its human rights violations. The only evidence that he was a violent criminal, member of the gang, etc., were those tattoos. He did not get a day in court. He did not get a chance to refute the claims. His lawyers cannot even contact him anymore. They lost contact with him. Okay? And as far as I could tell, no evidence has been presented otherwise. This man did nothing wrong. He wasn't an illegal immigrant, even. He was in the country through the proper port of entry. He had done nothing wrong. And Trump's administration sent him to a torture prison. There's no other word for it. A foreign torture prison where his lawyers cannot even contact or reach him now. Who knows if he'll ever get out? The judge hearing the case is no longer sure he even has jurisdiction anymore, right? Because his lawyers have tried to put forward a writ of habeas corpus to force a trial, but the judge doesn't even know if he has jurisdiction anymore. I don't know how else to say this, but denying due process like that is evil. There is a concept in law, but it's not just a legal concept. I think it's a moral concept as well. It's foundational to our judicial system in America. It's the concept of innocent until proven guilty. Okay? That concept that until someone can show that you have done something wrong, you are presumed to be innocent of wrongdoing. So this concept is under assault by Trump and the administration right now. And that should concern every single person here. Right, left, and center. This is a hill worth dying on. And you know, the people who've been watching me for a long, long time, you know that I've consistently said, stop calling them Nazis, stop calling them fascists, stop calling them all these names, keep your powder dry, don't be hyperbolic, don't go on all these rants that you can't prove. The Nazi salute to Elon thing was stupid. Saying that Trump was calling for the assassination of someone was stupid, right? I forget the exact wording, right? And I fought Pisco on this, I fought Josiah on this, I fought a lot of people on this, okay, on this concept. So when I tell you that this issue is a hill worth fighting on and dying on because it matters, please listen to me. Please at least hear me out and hear my arguments. I was arguing with Sargon of Akkad earlier, okay? Because it wasn't just him that said these things, right? There's been other people who said these things. This idea that, you know, I'd rather a few innocent people get caught up in the mix, as long as it keeps the gang members out. This is the same thing, right? This is the same argument that people use when they want to ban guns. They say, well, you know, banning guns will keep a lot of people safe. And I know a lot of innocent people who aren't going to harm anyone with their guns. They're going to get their guns taken away, but it's a price worth paying because it keeps people safe. If you want to go more extreme with it, an argument that I've heard from a lot of rad femmes is that men should be locked up or put on a curfew because they are the most violent offenders. They are the ones who are doing these rapes. They are the ones assaulting people and things like that. So if we lock them all up, yeah, sure, not all men, whatever, but it would protect people more, right? People would be more safe, okay? And I just think that line of argumentation is tyrannical. It is a spurious argument, and it leads to a world I don't want to live in. It leads to a world where I am presumed to be guilty simply based on artificial factors. For tattoos, for Christ's sake. Okay, for tattoos. For having a fucking mom and dad tattoo, and you're seen as a violent offender, right? Because you have a tattoo? That's insane. That is insane. And the fact that based on that flimsy evidence, that nothing of an evidence, that they took a man and they sent him to a foreign prison known for its human rights violations should make you mad. It should make you angry that someone's due process was violated in that way. Because what do you think happens next, friends? What do you think happens next? When this becomes the norm, that you can simply strip someone's due process away like this. Oh, it's just non-citizens. It's not going to stop there. Why would it? Why would it ever? The next thing that's going to happen is the left will take power. Because let's face it, right? We're looking at a recession, gang. It's coming. Goldman Sachs has upped their chances of recession from 20% to 35%. Tariffs are going to be implemented. It's going to drive down our economy. We're going to lose a lot of jobs. We're going to lose a lot of wealth. Okay? The left is going to take power back. If not in the midterms, then in 2028. And even if you think I'm wrong on that, fair play, there will come a time where the left does get power back. It just happens in politics, okay? We switch sides every once in a while, okay? The left is going to take all these weapons and all these tools and all these loopholes and all these things that you have developed right now to get the bad guys, and they're going to go after people that you don't think are bad. and they're going to violate their due process. And I don't want it to happen. If you remember, back in 2022, 2023, 2024, I consistently argued with the left on this. Josiah, who wanted to end the filibuster. Pisco, who wanted to, and Econoboy, who wanted, maybe it wasn't Pisco, Econoboy, who wanted to pack the courts. And I said, don't do this. Don't do this. And I warned them again and again and again that every weapon that they built to target the people they didn't like was going to be used against them. And it's happening. So please heed this warning. Now that you're in power, Republicans, conservatives, etc., these weapons that you are forging to get revenge on your enemies right now is going to be used against you in this similar fashion. I am not wrong on this. And round and round and round we go until all of our rights are gone. We need to stop. The deportations, if you can prove that they're a violent criminal, have at it. You have my blessing. Okay? Get the gangbangers out of this country. Bravo. Hallelujah. But you got to prove it. You got to prove it. You can't have the evidence. The evidence cannot be they had a mom and dad with a crown tattoo. You got to prove it. You got to give them a chance to answer the charges against them. Because why do you guys trust the government to get it right now? You don't think the government can do anything right, but for whatever reason, suddenly they are super capable of identifying gangbangers correctly with no mistakes. The government gets things wrong all the time. That's what due process protects us from. Due process protects us from the government coming in and kicking our doors down and taking away our freedoms. That's the check. That's the check on the government power that we have. It's robust, but it is under attack right now. It is under attack in a way that I feel is unprecedented by the Trump administration. And we need to stop it. We need to stop it right. We need to nip this shit in the bud. Okay. That's my rant for the day. That's my rant for the day. Tomorrow, I'll be debating counterpoints on Mahmoud Khalil, and I will be talking about freedom of speech and how I think that it should apply even to immigrants, even to people who are here on a green card or on a visa. Because, again, the speech is what we protect. The speech, no matter who says it. If I can say it and not face legal liabilities, you should be able to say it without facing legal liabilities. An immigrant should be able to say it without facing legal liabilities. Right? And people have asked me, oh, well, what does being a citizen get you? It gets you the right to vote, first of all. Right? I can actually have a say on the laws that get on the books and things like that. It gives me access to a lot of benefits, Social Security, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that immigrants, frankly, shouldn't get. Yeah, so there you go. We're going to rate out. We're going to rate out. And again, the First Amendment is great and all, but it doesn't give you your free speech rights. Your free speech rights exist regardless of the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects them. Okay? We're going to do this on both YouTube. Here, I should rate out on YouTube more. I keep forgetting, okay? I keep forgetting. But we're going to do it tonight. We're going to rate out to Prime. I want you to remind him that this is a hate raid, okay? So, this is what we're going to do. And thank you again for the donations. Thank you for the talks. I will see you guys tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. I love you. Bye-bye. Stream.